an eye on the Twitch, and I'll do YouTube.
I'm pulling up Twitch on
I can keep an eye on Twitch.
Well, we're live.
Oh, good morning, I guess, everybody. We're here keeping an eye on this sweet-ass tournament, Jungle Cup here in Baltimore, which is due to go live here any minute now. This is Alf. I'm joined by the one and only ValorAsh this morning. Going, buddy? How's the move?
It went pretty well. I made it.
Good. Hell yeah. We'll be joined by Twastell as well a little bit later to help us navigate through this very, very, very stacked Jungle Cup. Right, or in the wow, I don't even know where we are. Baltimore. It's early on this in this part of the country, so yeah, I'm excited.
We should see some good matches today. Economical swept the previous tournament in the Northeast in Philadelphia at the beginning of the month.
Yeah, did you pair up with him in that tournament?
I did. He ended up beating me. 2-0. He skunked me.
Now the question is, does that mean you're rooting for or against him here?
Oh, Economical and Bella are both very, very good friends of mine. I would be absolutely thrilled if either of them won.
I think we can all get on team Ek versus Bella in the finals, right? That's a match we want to watch.
Absolutely, that's a match I want to watch even if they don't get paired.
I know. Can we just have them play that match as a warm up right now? let's see who's ready. Is there anything we expect to see? I know we're still letting folks filter in. We've got a little bit of time before we get started at this here in Baltimore. Is there anything we expect to see change this week over, say, last week?
I haven't followed how the meta's developed much since last week, but I'm expecting most of the same.
I think it started out extremely Vigoroth centric, and it's going to end in the same fashion.
What do you think the over-under? Let's put the over-under at 1. How many games today do you think? Ooh, sweet trophy! Check that out.
That's nice.
That's Pokemon that's not Jungle Cup legal. The Kingler Trophy. I'm gonna put the over-under at 1. Over-under number of games we watch today without a Vigoroth in them.
How many rounds are we looking at?
We got 38 people, so that's 6 rounds, right?
6 rounds, yeah. Will we see a game without a Vigoroth in it?
I think
we will. Only one.
I think 2 or 3.
Are you taking
my money's on only one.
Mason, you're copping out and taking the match.
Oh, is that not how over under works? I've never played the price.
No, you have to go over under. Yeah.
I've never played the Price is Right. They never hosted me on the show, but I fully expect to see Vigoroth in every single match today.
Yeah, I wonder if we can get a poll up on that. I'm kind of curious.
Scotty,
had a little time.
Yep, I'll get pulled up.
So over under games with no Vigoroth, and we're putting it at literally 1.
Spark Spencer's saying, "Are you saying I should take off my Vigoroth?"
Well, if we were actually
is Spark Spencer in this turn?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, Spark Spencer, and then Sophiek's there.
Sophiek's in
Quartz
a
is
Ranger
there.
lobby.
And JRE Seawolf is also there.
Oh wow, a lot of great players. That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is a very, very good, very deep Jungle Cup as far as competitors go.
Lower gas prices. He's one of my scrim partners. He's very good. Yeah, we should see some top level gameplay today. Fun fact: Economical also swept the Rainbow Cup hosted by Ghost Stadium outside of or in Chicago on
Yeah,
Sunday
But that's
morning.
because he didn't have to play me.
So he has been one that's really been shooting up the ranks recently.
He's
Do you know if he already did his times 10 this month?
he has.
I believe he weighted his one in Philadelphia, the one that he
Philly?
swept.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure that's the case. I know I talked to him a couple days ago.
Here, I'll pull it up. I'm pulling up his trainer card right now.
Yeah, that's probably more effective than me digging
it
through.
looks like he did weight the Philly one that he 6-0'd.
Excellent.
So, and then it looks like he has done 3 Jungle Cups since, or he went 4-1, 4-1, and 5-0.
Well,
And it
That's incredible to see that kind of consistency in jungle.
Yeah, especially, because 3 of these are post Wigglytuff too, so it's like he had to do well in 2 different metas to an extent.
I don't feel that Wigglytuff changed the meta as much as people originally thought it would. What are your thoughts on Wigglytuff? Have either of y'all run a Wigglytuff?
No, I don't like running it, but I do feel like it shook up the meta a little bit. Just like the fact that, like, for example, Fortress was basically a non-factor beforehand. Most people weren't running it. I was going to run it pre-Wigglytuff anyways, but a lot of people weren't. And then you see Wigglytuff pop up, and you start seeing Fortress in a very high percentage of teams. And then I think we've seen a little more Venomoth play since, but I guess it's kind of balanced with Vespiquen. I don't know. I guess it wasn't as drastic of a change as it seemed like at first, but I think there's been some more subtle shifts due to it.
So Fortress on PvPoke is actually has the #1 spot for like matchups and win percentage. So I'm surprised that it took Fortress this long to get back on top.
Well, the biggest problem for Fortress is it loses to Vigoroth and to Noctowl, and those were the big 2 before.
That is true. And Wigglytuff did dismantle that core.
Yeah, Wigglytuff dismantled that core, and Vigoroth gets that Wigglytuff win, while beating a lot of the poison types that were also coming in to deal with Wigglytuff. Because Fortress is beating the Venusaurs, the Victreebels, the Beedrills, and the Venomoths.
I haven't yet played with it, but I've seen it a bunch in testing, and it's either been or it's absolutely demolished me. It doesn't feel like there's a middle ground for Wigs. I feel like either the person who has it navigates the game in such a way where when it finally comes out, I'm like, there's no way I can beat that. Or it sort of comes in early and it's mostly a non-issue.
Yeah, I think I've only seen like a couple Wigglytuffs played against me, and every time I've seen it, I've had almost no problem with it. But that's because my team is on the fairly stacked against Wigglytuff side. Where I'm running, I have Venusaur, I have Venomoth, I have Fortress, and I have a bulky Lantern that wins the 1 shield against Wigglytuff. In addition to Vigoroth, which can win, I think all but the 2 shields usually. I mean, there's the breakpoint and the 1 shield. But the point is, my team is fairly stacked against Wigglytuff, so I've never really had a problem with it. Versus other people who might be running like Vespiquen, Noctowl, Alolan Graveler. If you have all 3 of those in your team, then you become a little weaker. What were you gonna say, Mason?
It is also interesting to see another Pokemon that I think we've seen develop out of the meta, or come to light in playing eccentric role in the meta, and that's Lantern. And I believe Ken was a big advocate of Lantern for some time now, right, Ken? Am I
Yeah, I
correct?
mean, I love Lantern. I love the stupid fish, and its position has always been excellent in the meta, where it really just has a great matchup against the other electrics, and it's just such a tanky Pokemon that has some flexibility. I don't know. I think I'm not surprised to see it do really well, and it's been electric. I've run the entire in jungle. We did finally get our pull up too, so we're doing a little over under as we wait for this tournament in Baltimore to start, which is give us a vote on how many Vigoroths you think how many matches we're gonna see that don't have a Vigoroth in them.
Wait, are you saying from either player or from one player not using it?
I would even be willing to say, let's call it one player not using it. I think it's that pervasive that teams of three.
Absolutely.
When I said over, I was thinking of only one player not using it. But I wanted to clarify, because when you said it that way, I don't foresee any games having 0 Vigoroths in them. But I could see 2 games having only 1 Vigoroth used between the 2 players.
That'll be interesting, right? I feel like that. I hope we get that game. I kind of hope we get a game today where there are 0 Vigoroths on either side, both players trying to one up the other one.
Wow, so far we have 5 votes, and they're all for the over.
I think folks are maybe just taking the odds that, over 6 rounds, if we see, say, an average of 2.5 games, that 16 games, we're just gonna see some weird ones. But I'll be real curious to see how it plays out.
I mean, the main reason I'm banking on it is because there's some real good players here, and I think, some of the top players are more likely to potentially identify an advantage against certain teams where it might be more advantageous to not run Vigoroth in a team of 3. I noticed that a couple weeks ago, prior to my big cup, and prior to his, I was scrimming with Caleb, and we did a best of 3, and I beat him, and then we did another best of 3, and I think he reanalyzed my team, and the second best of 3 he stopped bringing Vigoroth, and ended up crushing me as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the different answers he was able to bring when he had that extra slot and didn't need Vigoroth. So I think it's something that you don't see very often, but when you do see it, it's usually for a strategic reason.
Yeah, and we'll see how our players sort of adjust for that. I think it's going to be really, really interesting to watch, because yeah, those decisions are going to be, when done correctly, are going to probably make or break that match. I like that they're at spot we all know, which is they have 31 checked in and they need just 2 more for that 6th round. We're hoping too, the more rounds they have, the longer we get to stream, right?
Yeah. Someone's saying they're curious if someone runs their team of Cradily, Victory Bell, Venomoth, Noctowl, Vigoroth, and Lantern. I could see 5 of those 6 being run in a team, but I don't predict Cradily to be used very much.
So
that Stone Edge will surprise you, though.
Yeah,
yeah, but the fact that it's a rock type that still tends to lose to Noctowl doesn't bode too well. as well as the only grass that loses to Vigoroth. So it's just in like a weird spot where it doesn't really fulfill the grass role, but it also doesn't really fulfill the rock role.
Either.
And yeah, and
Right.
and I believe it loses to all three of Wigglytuff, Vigoroth, and Noctowl. So, I mean, it has some interesting coverage. I know Jerry Seawolf has highlighted that in one of his articles a while back, but I just don't think it's quite good enough.
Shadow Cold MFG from chat claims that Cradilly wins in all shield scenarios against Noctowl. It would take neutral from flying, being part rock.
Looks pretty darn close. This is our regular shout out to PvP Poke. Just running through some quick sims to see how it goes, but yeah, it's pretty close. It looks like it ordinarily loses in most scenarios.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they were simming, because yeah, it looks like it's losing the 0 and 2 shield and barely winning the 1.
I have it.
Regardless, though, that's not the type of consistency that I would want against Noctowl.
Yeah, and not to mention it also, if I remember correctly, takes neutral from Water Gun and Lantern because of the rock typing, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it certainly has some curveballs, and it's definitely one of those Pokemon that I think I've mentioned it before, that if you can to get a lot of reps in with something like that, and your opponent hasn't.
All right, and it looks like we're
Stone
live,
Edge.
by the way.
Oh, we are.
Looks
Round 1 is live.
So.
Oh, yet who we're streaming?
I'm not sure. Quartz hasn't told us. I think we might be just streaming the. We might just be streaming the top pairing,
okay,
but I'm not totally sure.
This is pairing 4, as seen on the screen.
Well, that's
I wonder
Quartz's
who he got
pairing.
matched up with. I see.
That's Quartz, yeah. Because he was just pulling up his pairing to see who he's fighting. He's fighting Legendary Edu. Haven't seen that name before, but. And yeah, here on stream we have the top 6 pairings. A lot of familiar names in there. We have Bella in the top pairing that we know, Economical in pairing 2, Jerry Seawolf in that 3rd pairing, Quartz in the 4th, and Spark Spencer in that 5th pairing. So all some top players, all names and faces that most of us know from Go Stadium. And so whoever we end up streaming should be a good match. And wow, the overs are really running away with this poll. We have 11 votes in right now, and the over is at 82%.
Clearly, everyone's on your side, Tristan, with the fact that we're just going to see too many games not to see players leave Vigoroth on the bench every once in a while. But I will definitely be keeping track just to see. Luck, right, the first match we watch will be a bunch of people not using Vigoroth.
And Kaiser Niner was commenting that Bella's team is the exact same team he's been running. So interested to see how it goes. So yeah, let's take a look at the teams for a sec while we're waiting for the first match. So Bella's got Vigoroth, Wigglytuff, Venusaur, Lantern, Noctowl, and Fortress. I've definitely seen this team used before. In my opinion, it's a little weak to Vigoroth for my liking. I mean, Wigglytuff can win, but like that's a little bit of a toss-up. And then like Noctowl, Fortress, Lantern all tend to lose. Though you know they can definitely steal a win depending on the circumstances. And so Venusaur is really the only Vigoroth counter. Yeah, I've seen this team before, and like I know it can work, but like I said, it is a little light on the Vigoroth counters. Personally, I prefer to have like a Vespiquen or a Venomoth or even a Beedrill in there as like an alternative Vigoroth counter that can also beat the grasses.
Yeah, it looks like we are also watching the top pairing with Bella in round 1 as we see the players sit down there.
Okay, so we have Bella against Sir Luke Everett. I'm going to try to find their team on this list of players.
We got it.
Okay.
It's got Venusaur, Beedrill, Noctowl, Lantern, Alolan Golem, and Vigoroth.
Okay, so he's got a double electric here. The one thing though with double electric is it seems like it's much. I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but it seems like since Wigglytuff came out, maybe it's just people have learned the meta better anyways. But ever since Wigglytuff came out, I've never really noticed a double electric team actually bring both electrics in the same trio. So
it seems, I mean, their coverage doesn't really overlap in a meaningful way. So unless you're really trying to navigate the game to a specific state, it seems pretty. We'll get sort of a sense for how Bella team here in a moment.
Yeah, so what are you seeing from the teams? Because to me it looks like Venusaur is positioned fairly favorably, beating both the Electrics, Vigoroth, and having a mirror match, and just needing to watch out for the Beedrill and Noctowl.
And Lantern handles Beedrill and Noctowl just fine.
No, Beedrill actually beats Lantern.
Really?
Yeah.
So looking at Bella's team, a Lantern and Fortress combination in the back has full coverage against Sir Luke Everett's team. As Lantern takes out the Flyers, and then potentially it only has to worry about the mirror. And then the only problem that would be, the only Pokemon that poses a problem for that core is Vigoroth.
Right.
Late
game, Lantern can take it out with a Hydro Pump.
Right.
So I was
thinking.
So.
All right.
we can go deep on this, but we've got game action with a Vigoroth versus a Beedrill right now.
Bella's just
Bella
spamming these. Yeah, and Bella's just spamming these body slams, trying to put as much hurt into the Beedrill, and now it looks like is making a quick switch into Fortress to try to take the Beedrill down with Bug Bites. Does a good amount of damage, and the Lantern switching is a little late. Which means Bella will probably be able to double Earthquake here if this first one gets shielded. Just because the Lantern switched in kind of late, he was able to build up a good amount of energy, which is something that's not usually the case. Where usually in a shields up scenario between Fortress and Lantern, you can only get to one heavy slam and an Earthquake.
Well, upside is we're not in a shields up situation. This is a shields down situation for this Lantern, and I expect it to go down here to this Earthquake.
Oh yeah, I didn't even realize that the other shield was burned. But yeah,
Bella burned that shield on
with the Vigoroth, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, he was able to get to that double Earthquake before the second Thunderbolt comes out, and now he's just trying to get off that heavy slam before the Vigoroth takes it out. And he elects to shield to preserve his Fortress and try to squeak out that heavy slam, which he's able to get to, which should put a good amount of hurt into the Vigoroth. He gets the Excellent there, and then looks like he's going to quickly switch into his own Vigoroth to try to take out that Vigoroth with counters. He barely can't do it. His Vigoroth will go down to the Body Slam, but I'm expecting his Lantern to come in now and just chip it down with Water Guns, which it easily does. Has a bit of an energy lead coming into this last matchup against Beedrill, which looks like it has energy in the tank, probably for a Sludge Bomb. Oh, only Next Scissor. So he should be able to pretty easily finish this out because he should be able to finish it off with just Water Guns before the Beedrill's able to do enough damage to take him out.
Yeah, one of the things that we saw in that match, the difference between a Vigoroth that has to burn energy to close out matchups versus one that comes into matchups with a body slam ready is huge, right? We saw that Sir Luke's Vigoroth both times have to burn a body slam just to make sure it didn't lose. Really kind of neutralized its effectiveness.
Right, and that's something where it's so hard because, if you're able to finish something off with counters, that puts you in a real good spot where you have a ton of energy in the bank to just spam those body slams on the next mon. But you don't want to get too greedy there, because if you try to kill it with counters and you don't, and you get your Vigoroth taken out instead, that really flips the matchup on the head. So there's a real fine line there with like how much you can farm versus when you just need to finish something off. But yeah, I wanted to just highlight, I think that switch out from Bella, from Vigoroth into Fortress, against the Beedrill, I think was really the turning point in the game.
And the little bit of
especially-
delay on the Sir Luke's switch to his own lantern. So we're gonna see this get run back. Let's see if Bella wants to do something different here.
And yeah, that's something that's good to note for really anyone is, if you're swapping Lantern into a Fortress matchup, you have to do it almost immediately, because otherwise the Fortress gets too much of an energy advantage, and is usually able to get to that second Earthquake before you can get to your second Thunderbolt.
Yeah, Bella just trolling me, I think. Dropped the Vig from this lineup to get our first game with our first player with no Vig.
All right, and so we have Noctowl in the lead against Beedrill. Very favorable matchup for Bella. I'm expecting a quick switch from the opponent, which they do. Bella stays in. It looks like he's going to fire off the Sky Attack, and then to force a shield most likely, and then I'm expecting him to swap out pretty quickly after that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, quick switch to Venusaur as expected. He is going to have to burn at least one shield probably in this matchup, so that the Venusaur doesn't go down to the body slams. Elects to not shield the first body slam. He gets to that Frenzy Plant, which will either force the second shield or likely KO at this point. So at this point, the opponent is out of shields. Bella still has two. Has to shield this body slam so that the Venusaur stays alive. And at this point, if Bella can just get to another Frenzy Plant before the next body slam, this Vigoroth is going to be gone. Unfortunately, the Vigoroth barely beats it to the charge move, so Bella's forced to burn that second shield in order to take advantage of this energy and get rid of the Vigoroth. He elects to farm a couple extra Frenzy Plants, as he knows he just took a body slam, before using the Frenzy Plant, so that his Venusaur will has almost enough for a Frenzy Plant. And so as soon as that Beedrill comes in, he's able to spam off that Frenzy Plant because he farmed those extra Vine Whips in advance. And then looks for a quick switch into Noctowl. A bit of a risky play that may come back to hurt him, because his opponent has that Lantern as a counter switch.
I was wondering if he was wagering that because Vig came in to counter the Noctowl initially that maybe an electric in his line, but it's a little bit of a risky play. But given that he's that Thunderbolt isn't even a one-shot kill, like he's still got game against the Beedrill.
Yeah, and he lucked out a little that his opponent went basically for the straight kill and didn't farm too much energy on that Noctowl. Because if the opponent had farmed, he'd be in a much worse position. At this point, he's just using some Bug Bites and should be able to finish off the Lantern with a Heavy Slam. Heavy Slam is double resisted, so it doesn't do much damage to Lantern, but Lantern is in the red. And I guess it didn't finish it off, but then he's able to kill it with the Bug Bites. And this is going to be close. He gets beat to the charge move. which means the Fortress will be going down.
This is a bad spot to be with only Venusaur left.
Yeah, and Venusaur is pretty low
And no
too.
charge. Yep. You were right,
Uh,
Tristan. That switch to Noctowl was the game-losing play. Or I
Yeah,
believe that was the defining moment of the.
There was
Yeah,
another.
I think if he had swapped to Fortress instead, he would have had the game in the bag.
There was another play midway too that I think was kind of interesting, which was in that Vigoroth versus Venusaur matchup. He shielded a body slam, planning to try and get to another frenzy plan. He ended up burning both of his shields on his Venusaur to try and win that matchup. If he had let that in, he would have had none with a fort, which does great against both of the remaining Pokemon at 2 shields. So I wonder if you got a little greedy there.
That's a little risky though, because both Noctowl and Fortress don't have the best Vigoroth matchups, where Vigoroth can kind of chunk them down with counter damage. So I think that's why he did the double shield. But that kind of goes to show you how Venusaur isn't the most reliable Vigoroth counter, because if you switch in too late, you're often forced to double shield in order to get a win, versus some of the other counters. You can afford to switch in a little bit later. But yeah, I really think that the turning point was swapping in Noctowl instead of Fortress. If he had swapped to that Fortress instead, is a bit of a safer pick against the opponent's team, especially in that shields down. He definitely would have gone to the Earthquake before Lantern was able to take him out, and that would have been able to run away with the game at that.
We're gonna get our game 3. We did see a player not bring a Vigoroth, and then that player promptly lose to a player with a Vigoroth. So I'm not saying to leave Vigoroth on the bench, but so far it is players leaving Vigoroth home. What he chooses to do here in game 3.
But yeah, I think the thing with Vigoroth is it's able to beat the Electrics, it beats Fortress, it beats Noctowl, and it doesn't do too badly against most of its counters either. Like we
So
saw
we're back
that
with
Venusaur matchup,
that Vigoroth lead.
against Beedrill lead again. So it'll be interesting to see how Bella plays it out this time.
I mean, he had success last time working to try and burn those shields. Positioned him really well. It doesn't look like he's inclined to switch out of this matchup, which is probably a little different than how many of us would play it.
I think he's trying to spam the body slams and then get a quick switch in order to tank a charge move.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's his game plan here, because if you're able to time that switch right, and it looks like he's going to swap to Fortress, I believe. Fortress doesn't have to shield from Beedrill really. And he gets counter switched by the opponent Vigoroth, but he is able to land that heavy slam, which will either force a shield or do a good chunk of damage. So it's not a bad spot to be in with that swap to Fortress, especially considering that Fortress can tank body slams quite well. So you're really only worried about a Bulldoze. Otherwise, a Vigoroth is a little bit wasted against Fortress, actually.
It's a much more even matchup than I think it's frequently looked at by some players. Like people's eyes light up when you switch a Fortress and you're like, oh yeah, I'll get my Vigoroth, then it'll be great. And it's like, well, it's certainly
yeah, and there you see he was able to take the Fortress out with just the bug bites at the end.
Yeah.
So
I'm wondering if both players there.
He has a heavy slam in the tank. Is hoping to just bait that shield from the Lantern. And the opponent was either counting charge moves or just felt the fact that it seemed a little too early for it to be Earthquake, or maybe just felt like taking a risk. And yeah, here's another one where yeah, Vigoroth wins, but it doesn't love the matchup against Lantern because that Water Gun deals neutral damage, and Lantern's pretty tanky. So Bella uses the Body Slam here to just try to chunk it down. Goes for another Body Slam, which will either get the Lantern quite low or force a shield. It does force the shield.
Now we're looking at sort of this remaining Lantern and Beedrill versus, but with two shields.
Bella has 2 shields, so he should be able to basically take the Lantern down with just water guns. Actually, both of them are quite low, and so he opts to. He does shield here, so he shields the X Scissor because he was afraid of a Sludge Bomb.
Okay.
And he has 2 shields to burn, so might as well use them, right? Unfortunately, he doesn't call the moves correctly, and so he shields the X Scissor, but doesn't shield the Sludge Bomb. And then he has a Thunderbolt ready to take out the Lantern, and then the Beedrill should be coming back in, but he's still got that.
Beedrill's dead.
It looked like the Beedrill had a little HP left and got swapped out. So
yeah, he definitely. I think as soon as that Beedrill came in, knew that the plan was essentially farm up a Thunderbolt and close off that Lantern as soon as it came in. Now that he was up shield, so he just needed to make sure that he either had a shield just in case the Lantern had energy. Get into a scenario there where you're no shielded and lose to the game flipping that charge move coin.
But yeah, that was well played from Bella, especially coming back from a bad lead in order to burn all the shields. And even though he had 1 Mon left to the opponent's 2, he had a 2-0 shield advantage, which he was able to leverage quite successfully in his favor. What else did you guys notice there, Ken and Mason?
Right off the bat, leading Vigoroth, like you said, leading Vigoroth into Beedrill is quite difficult. But as long as you're able to force a shield or 2 off of the Beedrill, it seems like Bella capitalized on his shield advantage throughout the match, and that's what ultimately cost Sir Luke Everett the match.
Yeah, I mean both games we watched Bella win there. They led a Beedrill, which is a generally a negative matchup. That's something that I think a lot of folks would switch out of immediately, and being able to navigate the game there to a win is really that strategy of just trying to burn those shields so you can get a quick switch and then rely on sort of the tankiness of Fortress up a shield. Put him in a great position in both of those games.
Yeah, and like I was saying, Fortress tanks those body slams pretty well because they're not very effective. So it's able to neutralize some of Vigoroth's energy that way, which also ended up working out pretty well for him. And before we keep talking about that match, it looks like most of the results are in. Economical won his match. It looks like Jerry Seawolf lost. Quartz won. Bark Spencer lost. Sophique won. So yeah, we're just waiting on a one more pairing to finish their match, and then we'll be on to round 2.
Okay, and it looks like we're going to be following Sophique in round 2. We'll get a look at Sophique is in nice Ranger lobby, actually. It looks like
he's
the
quite
plan is
skilled. Have either of y'all had a chance to play him?
Wait, Ken, Sophique's in whose lobby?
I thought he's in ours.
I don't think so.
Am I just totally conflating him with another human?
I think so. Yeah, I don't think he's in our lobby.
Okay. I've
scrimmed against him, but he's not in our lobby. Oh, and King is noting that the opponent should have fired off the charge move earlier. He's noting that 70 energy versus 50 energy. Basically, 70 energy is the 2 body slams versus, I believe, 50 for the Sludge Bomb. He's saying shouldn't happen where they fire off 2 charge moves without a responding charge. So, it was quite well played by Bella, but I think it also was misplayed by the opponent, as King is noting. Where
There's also
if
there was
the opponent had fired off a charge move, it would have forced a shield and or a switch much sooner. But because they waited, it kind of ended up coming back to hurt them.
there was also a in that middle match with Vigoroth and Fortress where Bella's Fortress came out just ahead. It looked to me like both players may have been trying to win that fight with quick moves to go into the next fight with energy. Vigoroth narrowly lost that. I think that Sir Luke had a body slam there that they could have fired off, but maybe opted to, as they were feeling like they were playing from behind, maybe tried to regain that advantage there.
Right. But yeah, I mean, in the end, it ended up not mattering. Bella could have shielded that. But you never know if that plays out differently during the game. It could force some different decisions.
What are we looking at? We know we're watching Sophique in round. What did Sophique bring to this tournament?
Let's pull it up. Sophique
like-
brought Noctowl, Fortress, Vespiquen, Vigoroth, Venusaur, and Lantern. So yeah, this is a pretty solid team, and one that I've noticed seems pretty popular too. Vespiquen is nice because it's one of the best Vigoroth counters out there, where it can pretty happily tank a body slam. In fact, I think you can usually tank 2, if not 3 body slams. So it makes it a quite hard Vigoroth counter. In addition to double resisting that counter damage.
We've got the pairing as well. He's up against Zoe's, who kind of a spicy squad. There's a Raichu, a Heracross, a Venomoth, a Beedrill, and a Victory Bell. There's not a Vigoroth on Zoe's team, so the over/under is busted. It's a bit higher. That's clearly Zoe's won't be bringing a Vigoroth unless something has gone terribly wrong. What do you see here? What if you were Sophique, what would you be looking at?
That's an interesting team.
Always has at least 4 Pokemon that are favored against Vigoroth. Lantern,
yeah,
either.
So, yeah, I'm wondering if maybe the strategy is to scare off the Vigoroth and then run a double electric. Because 4 of those 6 are all gonna lose to Noctowl. So maybe they're hoping to bait in the Noctowl and then have a double electric for it.
I mean, that's definitely a line you can take. Yeah, this is going to be pretty interesting. The teams line up in kind of a fun way. It's fun to see a team that is so distinctly off meta from what sort of the top of the bracket is bringing.
Knockdown and Lantern look very safe against this team from Sophique's angle.
Interesting you think that Lantern is safe when they've got a Victory Bell as well as a Beedrill here.
I don't necessarily look at that Beedrill Lantern matchup necessarily as like overwhelmingly unfavorable, though. True. Victory Bell is definitely something you'll want to keep an eye out for because it just absolutely embarrasses a Lantern. But see Sophique
and then
sort of lead the Noctowl.
Venusaur is another interesting pick here because it beats both the electrics. It tends to beat Victory Bell, and it goes fairly even with the Heracross. So it's really only worried about those 2 poisons. All right, so we got Beedrill lead against Vigoroth. And so it'll be interesting to see how Sophique plays this out.
We just watched this play out multiple times. We'll see if it plays out any different here.
And yeah, so Sophique opts to not use any charge moves, bank the energy, and then quickly swap to Noctowl in hope of tanking a charge move, which ends up being the X-Scissor, but then gets counter-swapped by Raichu. So this is not a great position for the Noctowl to be in. But if it is a shield bait with... Okay, so no shield bait, it's a wild charge, which is correctly shielded, and then spams the Sky Attack. Raichu is kind of glassy, so even though this is resisted, it would do a decent amount of damage. And then, trying to get off that second Sky Attack, which Sophie gets to, is able to fire that off, misses a couple bubbles. But like as I said, Raichu's kind of glassy, so that landing that not very effective Sky Attack gets it to the yellow. And at this point, Sophique elects to let the Noctowl go, but it ends up being a shield bait Brick Break, which doesn't KO. And at this point, there's really no point in shielding because the Noctowl is on low energy and gets taken out by a second Brick Break. And so now Sophique is able to just counter down the Raichu and store up some energy so that he can just unload body slams on whatever's coming in next, which happens to be that Beedrill. But at this point, he's able to fire off back-to-back body slam, which is either going to KO or force a shield here. And so he's able to get that last shield. So now he has a 1-0 energy advantage, and elects to tank this charge move, which could be a bad choice if it's a Sludge Bomb. But accurately predicts that it's an X-Scissor, and it quickly swaps out to Lantern to try to chip it down with Water Gun. In the back we have a Alolan Graveler, and so Lantern's quite favored here. It was a little bit of a risky play because if the opponent had a Victory Bell in the back, that would have been basically GG. But I think based on the course of the match, he kind of predicted what the opponent had based on other decisions, and is able to take that risk, kill off the Gravel with just Water Guns, and then Hydro Pump for the win.
Hydro Pump seems really, really unnecessary.
Definitely,
Just
but
flexing there.
I mean, sometimes though you forget like what the HP is at when something gets swapped out, and so you elect for the safer play, and that may have been what happened, where he just kind of forgot how much health the Beedrill had and didn't want to take any risks, so he charged up to a Hydro Pump to be sure of the victory.
Yes, absolutely. I believe that was a correct play there.
Yeah, I'm not judging the play. I'm more feeling bad for that Beedrill.
Excited on the overkill.
Yeah, just that would have killed like 3 Beedrills.
Right, but there's that double electric line that I was kind of predicting from this team, because like I said, with the 4 of 6 losing to Noctowl, I think the plan is to kind of bait in that Noctowl and have double electric. That being said, what did you think of the counter switch from Zoe's? Do you think swapping Raichu into Noctowl was the right play, or should they have gone Alolan Graveler instead?
I would have definitely brought in the Graveler. I think its matchup is a little bit better there as far as coming out of that matchup with HP and energy. And we've got a game 2, so let's see where we begin.
So here we have Fortress against Venomoth in the lead. This is quite favorable for Sophique, as Fortress resists all the moves. And so he's just chipping down with Bug Bite, but elected to pull up his switch menu just because he's expecting a quick switch from the opponent and wants to be able to react quickly. But the opponent actually stays in, which is interesting here. And so Sophique is just opting to farm up a ton of energy here and doesn't have a great answer for this Raichu, actually. He times the switch well, though, in order to tank what I assume is a Brick Break, which it is. And so now we have a Lantern versus a Raichu here. Lantern is chipping down with the Water Gun, and Raichu really needs to land a Wild Charge to do well in this fight.
And there it is.
Yeah, there it is. Sofika thinks that it is a shield bait when it's not. But he is able to get to that Thunderbolt, which should force a shield given how glassy Raichu is. There's your shield. And here's a difficult turning point. It's not great to shield here, and he elects to not just let the Lantern go. And I expect the Fortress to come back in. He uses a Heavy Slam, which at this point will either KO or force a shield. He forces that second shield, and then spams another Heavy Slam. So, this is a little unfortunate having to expend that much energy on a Raichu when you would have liked to have it saved up. But at this point, he is in a 2-0 shield advantage, so can kind of use that to his advantage. Opts to tank the Silver Wind, which does quite a bit of damage, and now his Fortress is pretty low. So he does a quick swap to the Noctowl and able to, in order to eat a charge move. And so he's being pretty conservative of his shields here. And takes down the Venomoth with just wing attacks. And there's a Victory Bell in the back, which he's able to just finish off with Sky attacks, and that will be GG.
That Victory Bell was there. Kind of odd that when that Lantern came in, we didn't see a switch, actually.
Yeah, I just think Zoe's had some questionable decisions in terms of switches in this matchup. And if he'd played it differently, I think maybe he could have punished Sofik. Oh wait, no, Ken. It was a swap to Raichu, which is Sofik counter swapped. That's what it was.
Okay, I must be misremembering that.
Yeah,
that line.
Yeah, because it was a Fortress versus Venomoth in the lead. And so the opponent swapped out to Raichu. And then Sofik had to counter swap.
Yeah, you're right. Now that I'm remembering it. Yeah, well, so far, we've seen mostly teams without Vigoroth lose. So while the over under is super busted, it has been interesting to see how that's gone. How are we on our standings? Let's take a look real quick. We still have a lot. It looks like Bella dropped round 2.
Oh wow.
That's an upset in the top spot. We're still waiting to see Economical, who we will be streaming in round 3, and see how they do. They're fittingly paired against, which would be Economical.
And it looks like Jerry Seawolf dropped another game. I'm interested actually to pull up his team and see what he's running. So Jerry C is running Venusaur, Magneton, Beedrill, Noctowl, Fortress, and Vigoroth. So fairly meta for the most part. Magneton is a good pick, but hasn't been quite as popular as Lantern. But yeah, I'm a little surprised he didn't run really anything off meta, considering all the different things he kind of looks into.
Are we getting some bonus? We're getting some bonus quartz here?
Yeah, we're getting a Quartz's matchup. So we've got a Lantern lead against Vigoroth. It'll be interesting to see how he plays this, as Vigoroth is favored here, but Lantern can still chunk down a good amount of damage with just Water Gun, and can force a shield with that Thunderbolt. So it seems like Quartz is just electing to stay in, tank the body slams. Lantern's pretty tanky, so can afford to tank one or two. And he gets to that Thunderbolt, which is either going to KO or force a shield. I'm expecting a shield from the Vigoroth, which we get. And then he's looking to swap out. He swaps into the Vespiquen, which is easily able to tank this body slam.
A well-timed swap.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it was totally worth it, because now he's stuck up against a Noctowl. And is going to be forced to shield if he wants to do much of anything.
But he's going to get to this power gem, which is one of the advantages. One of the things I like about Vespiquen is that it doesn't feel hopeless in this fight, and if this knock doesn't shield, this is going to do some damage.
It doesn't feel hopeless, but even landing a power gem, it still doesn't do as much damage as you'd like. And at this point, the Noctowl is basically just going to farm some energy. I
Not able to
let
given
this
that burn a shield to come out of that matchup energy positive, or use that sky attack to make sure that you don't get by what I think would have been a lethal exciser.
And so here comes in the Lantern. He's able to farm up with water guns. I'm expecting the Vigoroth to come back in unless the opponent is running Venusaur. Lantern comes in, and Quartz is not in a great spot having a Noctowl in the back. He is able to get off that Thunderbolt, which I expect to be shielded. Oh, it's not shielded, but maybe the next one will if he gets to it. The opponent is probably electing to save shields for whatever's in the back. At this point, Quartz is forced to burn his last shield in order to keep the Lantern alive, to get to that Thunderbolt. Which he gets to. I'm expecting a shield here. But let's see what happens. Yep, and now he's not in a great spot with Noctowl on the back. He's trying to chip down the Lantern with just Water Gun. But at this point, the Noctowl is probably going to be KO'd by the Thunderbolt that's coming out.
Didn't quite kill it, but I think there might have been merit in potentially switching there. Just because, because you already know you're going to lose this fight, and you're going to be able to put yourself in a better position, I think, if you have all that extra energy.
Yeah, I agree.
Ooh.
Regardless of the plays he made, though, it seemed to work out well for him.
Yeah, he's able to get to that sky attack, and looks like...
Oh, he missed. That's why you got to get all those bubbles.
Yeah,
he let one or two fly.
Yeah.
Oh, that is brutal.
Oh man, I'm gonna be giving Quartz some crap about that, because other night on stream he was giving me a hard time about missing some bubbles. So comes back to haunt him.
Oh, that was
poor Quartz.
Aren't you glad you put that one on stream?
Oh man.
At least we all now got to live your bad beat. So
that's the play that you think about for like 3 hours straight on the drive home.
I mean, I don't think Quartz has a 3-hour drive home, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah. It's the one that bothers you for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it'd been interesting to see, I think, what happens in the event that Quartz switched immediately on that Lantern. I think there's definitely some really interesting. The game would have played out in an interesting way from there, so that would have worked out better for him. But
yeah, it might have, because then he still would have had a Lantern with a little HP in the back, which might have been able to water gun down that Vigor after he missed the bubble.
Or the question being whether or not if they make the switch, if Manders does the same thing and switches back to that Vig.
Right.
So there's definitely some other stuff that could happen, but it didn't quite feel great to up all that extra energy. Just sort of water gunning down Quartz's Lantern.
But yeah, we saw a no Vig Quartz, and another loss for a no Vig team. I mean, he almost had it. He almost had it, but I think the real problem was that he had double flyers and Lantern, and so with his team comp, he didn't have a great answer for the opposing Lantern, where his basically only answer was to mirror match.
Did I lose because I missed a bubble?
Yep.
Yes, you lost several bubbles.
Oh my goodness, guys.
Quartz,
I suck.
Quartz, you were making fun of me the other night on stream, but now I get to make fun of you.
Missing bubbles on stream, guys. What is this? Oh, but she played very
The
well.
pressure does get to you on stream, does it not?
I thought I switched out my Lantern actually at the end with 1 HP. I thought I did, but apparently I didn't make it in time.
It looked like you attempted a switch.
I did, but I guess I was too slow there. But it looks like Bella lost his game, so it's been a tough competition here.
I mean, we were remarking before we even started how deep and stacked the list of players here was, and
yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
looks like
the
3
Maryland
leaders
DC
also.
I tried to get 3 leaders on, but then his phone is Android. But if I can get one of his opponents to agree to stream from the opponent's perspective, we can watch his games that
Can we
way.
get wait, Quartz, who are we doing next? Can we get economical maybe? Or
Yes, he did say that he will do one of the rounds. So if he wins this one, then we'll get Echo One.
sounds good.
If he loses this one, that'll be all top 4 of our pairings taking a loss in
The
round
thing is,
2.
if you look at all the names from the top 4, even on the second seed, basically, right? The players who are not favorited, they've won tournaments in the local area. They are all pretty, established players. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, the Maryland DC area has a pretty stacked field.
And I think we are missing out on Wrangler too. That would have been nice if he made a trip up to Baltimore.
Yeah, because Wrangler's not here, and Tronk isn't here either.
Trunk is actually, I think he's out of the area at the moment, but
Right, but
when
my
he's
point
back.
is like that's 2 other top players in this area
For
that
sure,
aren't
for
even
sure.
at the tournament. It shows you how deep the playing field is in this area.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm going to start setting up for Game 3. I'll let you guys do your thing. I had some music playing in the background before, but maybe it's finished. Let me run that back. Alright, guys.
Looks like our... thanks for checking in, Quartz.
Sure.
Looks like X match is the last one in round 2. We're still waiting on a result for, so... it's either been plagued with issues or is super intense. I'm gonna assume the latter and get real excited, hopefully, to watch Ek play in round 3.
I mean, it could be both.
Both is not always the most exciting answer, though. I want this or that.
I'm just saying, like, especially in big tournaments like this, sometimes you'll see some issues that make the round drag on, and then you see, it going to Game 3, and, players taking their time to really analyze on its team because it's a tough matchup, that sort of thing.
See, whenever I do that, though, I end up losing because of it. I think myself right on out of the right line.
Yeah, Mason, so what else did you see from either that last round with Sofik and or Quartz's match?
I would have liked to see it played out if he had swapped the knockdown, but I don't. Only because I'm not sure if that would have been the correct play or not.
There was some,
if he could have fainted down that Lantern with wing attack, I believe it would have been the right play. But I don't know that the Lantern was that low on health to be able to do so.
I think you're definitely going to have needed to burn a sky attack to get out of that fight. But given Owl doesn't die immediately to body slams, I think you get a sky attack on Lantern, and I think you get a sky attack as you did on the. From there, you're probably in good shape. But Kang did point out, and I'd have to go back and look at the video, that it's certainly possible that the Lantern had too much health, that if you had made that swap initially without the water gun damage, Sky Attack wouldn't have been enough.
Right.
So in that case, it plays out essentially the same, except you've got a Lantern in the back with a little bit of health. So, difference being in the game we watched, Lantern got to that Thunderbolt before the Noctowl took it out. Even in the scenario where you switch initially and the Sky Attack isn't quite enough, almost identically, where the Vigoroth match with a little more energy. So I'd have to go back and watch, but I do think getting that Lantern out with some amount of health left probably could have flipped that game.
Exactly. Yeah. And at the end of the day, what ultimately cost him the game was missing some bubbles on his charges, which is why it's extremely important to practice those with remote battles and against Team Rocket players, to practice the animations for each different type of charge move.
Either of you figured out yet how to fire off a psychic move?
It's very, very slow counterclockwise motion. You just have to follow the bubbles as they pop up. Start in the top left.
Every other it seems like every other charge move seems to reward you for quicker movements, and that one is like super counterintuitive because you're used to going so fast. Only worth practicing. Right, looks like his round 2, so he moves into
round
that
3
top
is live.
And looks like Eck is going to play the player that beat Bella in round 2. So we'll get to take a look at Jabroni and what they've brought to this tournament.
Yeah, so Jabroni brought a Venusaur, Lantern, Noctowl, Fortress, Vespiquen, and Vigoroth. I believe we saw this team before. It's a fairly popular team.
It looks like the difference is that Eck did not bring a Noctowl.
Yeah, so Echo has a double electric with Lantern and Alolan Graveler, and then has Venusaur, Vespiquen, Fortress, and Vigoroth. So yeah, it's basically the only difference is Noctowl versus Alolan Graveler.
I wonder, is there anything? So I'm taking a look at sort of the matchup. What has Eck given anything up here by not including that Noctowl?
Not really, because Alolan Graveler gives you that bug coverage that Noctowl has. And then he's able to pick up the grass coverage that Noctowl gives between the Vespiquen and the Fortress. So I think he's able to kind of cover that Noctowl role between like the Graveler, the Vespiquen, and the Fortress. Because also Fortress is going to be basically all the other bugs. I guess the only coverage he's really giving up is the Heracross coverage that Noctowl has, but Fortress and Alolan Graveler really don't. So he's fairly reliant on like Vespiquen or a toss-up matchup of Venusaur or Lantern for that Heracross matchup, but I think he's just gambling on the fact that not many people are going to be bringing Heracross.
Yeah, that seems like a relatively safe bet. If you scroll through the folks here, I see I think 5 Heracross in the entire tournament. and there's definitely not a lot of Heracross kicking around. I think Wigglytuff kind of was the final nail in the coffin for those.
Yeah. And so, I think that's maybe a smart play of, just kind of knowing the meta and what people are going to bring. Where, obviously you want to have coverage for everything that might be thrown at you, but sometimes you take some risk and make your team a little softer against certain things that you're not expecting very often in order to, have a different look or buff up some coverage against something else.
I mean, I think there's some value in the fact that when you take a look at X team, you're so used to accounting for a Noctowl that when you don't see one, you're almost like, I looked to see him and go, huh, that's pretty standard, and then I realized there was no Noctowl. Seems real good. At least on Jabroni's side, it feels like Lantern has pretty good matchups. That's going to be a pretty important mon on Jabroni's side.
Yeah, and Venusaur has decently good matchups too. Beating both the Electrics, Vigoroth, and having a mirror. But that could be part of Echo's kind of game plan. It is, sometimes you'll see players make their team almost intentionally weak to certain things in order to kind of bait those in and make the opponent predictable, and then have counters ready.
Yeah, if Ek absolutely expects to see, Venusaur and say Lantern in against them, then you know how to sort of plan for that, and you can game plan for a more predictable opponent.
Right, and if you're expecting Venusaur and Lantern, that makes your Venusaur pretty appealing, especially if you're guessing that Vigoroth might be the third. Then you have.
Well, I don't think we're going to see Ekfrings. We've got.
All right, so we have Fortress versus Noctowl in the lead. So I'm expecting a switch out pretty soon. And he tries to switch. It doesn't seem to be working right away. And then he gets that swap into Vigoroth. It looks like the opponent is electing to use a Sky Attack, and probably going to switch right after that. Just opting to burn that shield first. No, it looks like Jeff Brownie stays in. So he's now going to have to deal with a barrage of body slams, or he might be waiting to just tank one body slam before switching, so that the Vigoroth has less energy. So that's what he's done. Is he waits it out so that the Vigoroth has less energy before he switches in.
I don't know that he should have shielded that body slam.
Yeah,
I agree.
Noctowl.
Yeah, so now Jeff Brownie has no shields left, and Echo opts to not shield the body slam here. His Vigoroth barely hangs on. He's able to fire off his own body slam. So at this point, that should take out the Vigoroth, or almost take it out. So we have Fortress coming in, able to tank this body slam quite well. If it's a bulldoze, it might hurt, but it's just a body slam. And so he's able to charge up some energy and feint the Vigoroth with Bug Bites, coming into this next matchup, which will probably be the Noctowl with almost a full Heavy Slam ready to go. He quickly swaps to Lantern and gets counter swapped to Fortress. But with a shield advantage, he's in a pretty good spot where he's able to just charge up to that Hydro Pump, which should basically take out the Fortress. And then he has a shield if the Fortress lives to deal with that Earthquake that's probably coming out. So at this point, he's sitting quite pretty, able to shield that. Oh, and it's a shield bait, but it doesn't really matter because he's going to get to an Earthquake. And now we have Lantern versus Noctowl, shields down. And this is a very favorable matchup for Lantern. At this point, it's basically GG.
Even if he did find a way to steal this one with the Noctowl, there's still a Heavy Slam on that Fortress. So
exactly, and
navigated.
Yeah, and the Noctowl's on kind of low HP to the point that that heavy slam would likely KO. So yeah, well played by Economical.
Can we get Eck to teach Quirks how to hit bubbles? That was pretty masterful across the board. I'm impressed.
Yeah, Mason. So what did you see there?
I like how he seemed to. I know Economical likes his lantern a lot. He's used it in many of his cups. He used it against me. He seemed like he set up his lantern for success there, protecting it against the grass and the bugs. Well, mostly just the grass with Fortress.
And one of the things that I think it was underrated there was that we watched him in that Vigoroth mirror not shield, even though he had body slam energy. And I think that's a really tempting shield to burn, because you know you're going to be able to fire back a body slam. But ultimately, setting that game up so that shield advantage there really paid off down the road.
Yeah, and I think that's just a testament to all the practice he's probably done, where he knew that he'd be able to, just barely tank that body slam.
Absolutely.
Whereas, if you're not as well practiced and my Vigoroth is kind of low HP, this might KO me, so I need shield to make sure I get off the body slam. But because he's probably put in a ton of practice, he knew the HP range there and knew that he could afford to tank that.
Either that or Jabroni missed a bubble.
I guess we'll never know, unless he was that was part of his strategy. He was banking on his opponent to miss a bubble.
Yeah, it's again
next level strats.
Know your opponent
head
will
knowledge.
Definitely miss a bubble.
It's all about the head knowledge.
It looks like he keeps flipping between Vespa Queen and Lantern, but I believe Lantern's the way. Just because a Noctowl lead again would be very difficult to deal with.
Did you see what team he locked in?
It was
I did not.
Lantern, Fort, and
Okay. So I have Lantern in the lead against a Vigoroth lead. So it'll be interesting to see if he swaps out right away, or it looks like he's probably going to tank a body slam and then swap.
He might fire a Thunderbolt, draw a shield, and then swap Vigoroth in with the shield advantage.
Yeah, it looks like that's the play he's going for. And he doesn't actually.
He doesn't? Okay.
But he is able to do some damage with that counter, and the Venusaur was a tad late, and so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because if Venusaur swaps in too late against a Vigoroth, it becomes not so great of a Vigoroth counter. And so Economical is nearly to the second body slam by the time Venusaur gets that first Frenzy Plant.
Mm-hmm.
And so he shields that Frenzy Plant, farms up some extra counter damage, a little extra energy, and then fires off the second body slam here. It'll be interesting to see if we get another shield, and we do. So at this point, the opponent is out of shields, and Economical has a full body slam ready to go. And so he elects to burn his second shield here, so that he is able to fire off that body slam.
He could have snuck a few counters in there, but overall I feel like that was a safe play. There's the few counters. There they are.
Yeah, and then they both switch basically at the same time into Force.
Wow.
That was next level.
And they both get that. It was basically a simultaneous switch, because they both get to the Earthquake at the same time, and they're both going to get each other quite low, and I'm assuming going to simultaneous KO. because there's no shields and they're both just gonna be bugged by. Oh, interesting.
Wow.
Maybe
Came down to
Echo's.
IVs.
Shinies do more damage.
Yeah, so it looks like that was an IV thing. And so at this point, Echo has that full Thunderbolt in the tank from Lantern, so he's able to just bring in his Lantern, just take out the Vigoroth immediately. So that was a
It
good
was
usage
smart to
of,
save that then.
Yeah. And now, and he was able to just take down the Venusaur with water guns at that point. So yeah, that was well played by Echo in order to, bank that energy. And so, that's always a difficult decision where, if you're able to swap out with energy and have it for later in the fight, that can be pretty pivotal. But in order to take advantage of that, you do have to maneuver the rest of the fight quite well, because you are kind of coming in behind on energy and or shields. But he was able to take advantage of the fight quite well without burning that Thunderbolt, and then save it at the end to finish it off.
That was really excellently played. Thing from setting up that initial sort of losing matchup. I mean, this is you always hear how important it is to win the lead, and I think we've watched a number of players, tournament specifically, come out of negative leads with wins, and I think a lot of it is sort of knowing how to play those, knowing that in this case you can basically get to that Thunderbolt without really having to worry about Vigoroth killing you.
Yeah,
puts you in great position to go from there.
But yeah, I agree. We've seen a lot of players come back from bad leads, and I want to say in that first round with Bella, I'm pretty sure he won 2 games from a bad lead and might have lost the other game from a positive lead, if I'm remembering correctly.
I know that he won both games where he led Vig into Beedrill.
Into Beedrill, yeah. But I'm pretty sure the game he lost was actually from a favorable lead, if I'm remembering correctly. So, I mean, it goes to show you that the winning the lead isn't everything. It obviously helps, but there's still a lot of game to be played left, even after that initial lead choice.
Well, taking a look at the standings, we still have some stuff to come in before we get to round 4. It looks like Bella picked up a redemption win, so back on the winning streak. Quartz also redeemed himself. I'm sure he hit more bubbles this time, but we still got a few more matches to go in round number 3. So we're just waiting to see who we're going to be watching next up.
And Spark Spencer just picked up his first win.
The sweet Ninjask.
Man, he always likes to run like some funky picks.
I can confirm that Spark Spencer's Ninjask is the only one in the tournament. I don't know if that will necessarily surprise anybody.
Mason, what do you think of Ninjask?
I don't think it's a very good pick at all. I'm very surprised that he picked it.
Can I ask you an honest question, Mason? Have you even really thought about Ninjask that much?
I've simmed it. It's got what, Fury Cutter and Shadow Ball, but the Shadow Ball just doesn't deliver like you think it would.
Looking through the registers as well, I see a spicy one of Zapdos, which
1500 as well.
Dang,
that's some flex.
One of the interesting things that strikes me about the lineups in this tournament is that Bella is the only one in the top 10 ranked players to bring a Wigglytuff.
Yeah.
But obviously, I mean, hasn't seen too much success with it because all of the top 10 teams have a fortress on them.
I mean, I'm looking through.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem again about Wigglytuff, in my opinion. Well, I think there's kind of two, but one of them is a lot of teams, have kind of adjusted, kind of stacked themselves against Wigglytuff, where you're seeing a Venusaur or Victory Bell in most teams, and that was kind of the case anyways. And now you're seeing Fortress quite common, so that's two. And then if a team is running a Venomoth or a Beedrill or a Magnus, third counter already. But with or without that third counter, it starts to become a little iffy if you really want to run Wigglytuff.
I think one of the things too is that it's not costing any of these teams much to have coverage for Wigglytuff. It's not one of those Pokemon that you're like, oh man, I have to. I think early on, folks were leaning towards, well, I have to consider now bringing, Magneton or Magnezone because I want to make sure. And you really didn't have to do that. Your teams were already spec'd pretty well against it.
Right. Well, and the other thing that I think came to light is that, Magnezone only beats Wigglytuff in 0 and 1 shields. Magneton can win the 2, but there's like an Ivy thing there where Wigglytuff is able to hit a breakpoint and win that 2 shield fight. And especially considering that Magneton's a legacy, it's hard to really optimize the IVs there. And so that was kind of a deciding factor for me. Is I realized so Magnezone is only winning 0 shield. Magneton is only winning 0 and 1 shield for the most part.
We've got some bonus PvP right now with Game 3 Sophique versus Fitz.
All right, so we have a bad lead here, Venusaur versus Fortress, so almost immediate swap into the Fortress mirror here. And this is a tough mirror to play because but the difference between landing an Earthquake or having a Heavy Slam not shielded is pretty substantial. And so here Sophique is able to correctly predict that Heavy Slam and let it go. And then opts for the shield bait himself, hoping to draw a shield, which he does. So at this point, and the opponent swaps out to Vigoroth, and he goes for Earthquake, which I think is an interesting decision. I guess hoping that it goes unshielded. I'm not totally sure in that choice because it seems like he could have gone double Heavy Slam otherwise. But at this point, he's in a 2-0 shield advantage, and brings in Vigoroth.
Interesting.
Which
I believe that he should have bought out. Right.
Yeah,
I think he should have bought out Venusaur.
Because there's still that Fortress in the back.
Exactly.
And so he really needs to preserve his Vigoroth for that Fortress matchup because Fortress walls Venusaur so hard that even with a 2-0 shield advantage, he's looking... Oh, wow. And he swaps into his Venusaur against the Fortress. Gets off this Frenzy Plant here, which is going to be resisted. But actually does a decent amount of damage.
It does plenty. I think... I think there's little chance that Fort gets there.
If he's able to feint this down, never mind.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to, or any Frenzy Plant will do at this point.
He just barely doesn't get to that Frenzy Plant. So now we have Vigoroth against something in the back. Vigoroth against Lantern. No shields, but Vigoroth does have a slight energy advantage. He's able to get to that Bulldoze. I'm not sure. Lantern's pretty tanky.
He missed. Looks like he missed a bubble or two as well.
But even if he had gotten those bubbles, it wouldn't have been enough.
Exactly.
Because,
right.
Now he's taking a Thunderbolt, and on low health. So yeah, I think I don't know. What do you guys think? Because I think that bringing in to the mirror was the turning point in that game. I think if he had brought Venusaur in against the opposing Vigoroth, and then had a full health Vigoroth in the back to deal with Fortress and Lantern, might have been better.
Especially with the 2 shield advantage.
Yeah, I think that's making sure you play around what you know is remaining from your opponent. I mean, obviously there was still a Lantern back there, but and Venusaur can win that fight. So I think definitely you want to make sure if you can expend your Venusaur on their Vigoroth, knowing that their Fortress is going to brick wall it, that's a much better place to be.
Yeah, especially with the 2-0 shield advantage, even if you have to burn 1 shield to get Venusaur to beat the Vigoroth, then you have a full health Vigoroth with a shield advantage against a half health Fortress and a Lantern. I'd still like those chances better than the way it played out.
Like we've got round 4 is now live, and it looks like we'll be watching Toast versus Fitz, who we just watched Fitz win that last game. So we could see them there in the 2 spot in the tournament. I believe they are all on 3 wins, both them and then Eck versus Silent Rhetoric in the 1 spot are all still on the undefeated.
Yeah, but just real briefly to finish up that thought I had before that match, is that if you have a bulky Lantern that hits some bulk points against Wigglytuff, it's also able to win that 1 shield matchup. So if you have a bulky Lantern, you're not really giving much up in terms of Wigglytuff coverage compared to a Magneton or a Magnezone.
I've certainly seen Wigglytuff do work, and it can certainly its biggest value may still be just the influence it puts on team selection. Provided you've planned for it and you know that your Pokemon hit the right break and bulk points, be dealt with in a number of different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just depends on how people have their team built. Because if you have enough Wigglytuff answers in your team, then it doesn't really affect your trio selection at all. Because you just kind of have enough answers, you don't have to worry about it.
Hi guys,
But
sorry to interrupt.
hey, Kurtz.
A little bit of a problem there. I thought we could stream the Fates and French Toast game, but apparently they were both using Androids. So we're going to be streaming Darkest David's game against me. He's got an interest team going on as well, so let's set that up, Scotty.
Okay.
All right.
But yeah, so if you have enough answers, you don't really have to worry about it because you just have enough answers. But for some of the teams that maybe aren't running Fortress and their only poison type is a Venusaur, they're running something like Noctowl, Alolan Graveler, Vespiquen. At that point, maybe teams like that have to deal with that bench pressure more, and have to kind of worry about their team selection more. So I guess it kind of varies based on what the opponents are bringing.
And we actually get to see that sweet double electric with Zapdos and Magnezone team. That's what Darkest David did.
Triple electric. It looks like
There's a Lantern there too, isn't there?
yeah.
Huh. Well, that'll be fun. I think there's a chance we'll see all 3 of those electrics come in a single 3.
Oh man. Does Zapdos even beat Vigoroth though? I'm
I
guessing
I don't
not.
think so. From recollection, Vigoroth beats every single electric in the twos, and in the ones, the only thing that has a chance to beat it is Alolan Raichu with a tie.
Right.
Is there any, like,
So
obviously, Darkest David's decided on a Zapdos. Is there a specific reason you think maybe, other than the flex, that you might actually bring that?
I mean, it has a better Venusaur matchup than some of the other electrics, but I think it still tends to lose. But that flying type does give it a resistance to Frenzy Plant, and also lets it resist counter from Vigoroth. But at the end of the day, I don't think it really makes a difference because I believe Venusaur can still just, I think, double Sludge Bomb and win. So.
Right.
I also like to point out that his only Vigoroth counter is Venusaur, so he has to bring it just about every game, and then that or Vigoroth for the mirror itself.
Right, I think maybe he's hoping that the triple electric will scare away, opposing Vespiquen, Noctowl, and other people who might be running like Venomoth. I think he's hoping he can maybe scare those away with his triple electric so that he can run Venusaur more freely. But I think a lot of good players will kind of see past that and realize that it's not super likely to run triple electric just because they all tend to lose to Vigoroth and they all tend to lose to Grass. And so we have Zapdos against Fortress in the lead. So this is not great for Fortress at all because Zapdos is going to resist the heavy slams and resist the earthquakes. And what's this flying move again? I haven't looked at those.
Drill Peck.
Alright, so it's a Drill Peck, which Quartz is forced to shield. I'm a little surprised he's staying in this fight, given... unless maybe his Fortress is running Rock Tomb. But here comes another Drill Peck. And he shields again.
Wow.
So he's forced into double shielding against Zapdos and finally gets to a charge move. The Zapdos opts to shield here. It was a heavy slam. And Quartz goes for the double heavy slam. It seems like Zapdos is kind of on the glassy side, so Zapdos is forced to double shield itself. And now we have... and Zapdos is just farming at this point. It goes for the Thunderbolt, which I believe should KO. And wow, this is one of the strangest matches on Jungle I've ever seen. Fortress versus Zapdos in the lead and both double shielding. But it looks like Zapdos is almost to another Drill Peck already. But that Drill Peck is going to be resisted by the Lantern. And so that's why he opted to try to make it to the Thunderbolt, but gets fainted down by the Water Guns. So here in comes Fortress. And it's a race to the charge move where Lantern's trying to get to that Hydro Pump. And Fortress wants to get to that Earthquake. And Lantern does get to that Hydro Pump, basically takes it out, but Fortress is able to get off that Earthquake before going down. And so that'll either take out the Lantern or almost take it out. So Lantern's down, and then we have a Vigoroth mirror in the back. Good play by Darkest David to immediately swap to the Vigoroth, so that Quartz is not able to farm additional energy. And at this point, it's looking pretty good for Darkest David, because the Vigoroth mirror is quite even, but he still has a little bit of HP left on his Fortress. And so even if he were to have lost that mirror match, he'd still have a Fortress in the back.
That Fortress swap with like HP, just totally won him that game.
Some questionable decisions there by Quartz. I'm not totally sure why he stayed in that lead matchup when he had a Vigoroth in the back that he could kind of safe switch to. Especially because, like we mentioned, Venusaur is the only Vigoroth counter here for Darkest David. And it's not, sometimes it's iffy depending on how quickly you're able to switch. So it'll be interesting to see if how Quartz adjusts in game 2.
I'm just hyped for Zapdos peeling off a win there.
I as well. I really appreciate the bravery it takes to delve into the off meta and make it successful. I've never actually seen gameplay from Zapdos, but it looks like the Charge Beam charges fairly
Pretty
quickly on
quick,
Drill
yeah.
Peck and Thunderbolt.
I'm wondering if just the off meta nature of Zapdos is what maybe made Quartz not switch. Because maybe he was thinking, oh, Zapdos is flying, it resists counter, so Vigoroth isn't going to do so well here. And so we have a Zapdos lead against Venusaur. It'll be interesting to see how this one plays out, because Venusaur is weak to that Drill Peck, but is able to fire off those Sludge Bombs for a good amount of damage.
I mean, in theory, this is the matchup that makes Zapdos appealing, right?
I mean, it should, but I believe Venusaur still wins the matchup.
Me too.
And so, yeah, Zapdos is forced to shield here, and Quartz baits with the Frenzy Plant. So Venusaur's in a pretty good spot now here, where it's just going for that Sludge Bomb and super well-timed switch to tank that charge move, whatever it may be. So yeah, he takes almost no damage from that Sludge Bomb. And now we're back into another Fortress Mirror match. And Darkest David is just charging up to that Earthquake. He should know that it's only a Heavy Slam because it was a swap. Oh, I was not expecting Quartz to get to that Earthquake first. And then Darkest David opts to shield bait with the Heavy Slam. Quartz calls his bluff. And so now we're fairly even here, both just whittling down at each other with Bug Bites. Darkest David gets to another Heavy Slam, which will also be resisted, and Quartz opts to let that go, and barely gets off what I believe is going to be a Heavy Slam himself. Darkest David has no shields, so this should KO, and Quartz barely hangs on to get off that charge move to KO the Fortress and maintain switch advantage. Instead, the Zapdos here just KOs with the fast move, but Quartz is up 1 shield to none. And so the Venusaur comes back in. Zapdos fires off a Drill Peck, which I am guessing will burn that last shield from Quartz, which it does. And he has a second Drill Peck ready to go.
So we'll find out what Drill Peck does finally.
Oh man, that basically just nuked Venusaur.
Yeah,
but we
because
do
of
have
Zapdos' attack stat.
Yeah, but we do have Zapdos in the back, or against Lantern. Lantern's opting to just try to KO with water guns, but Zapdos barely squeezes off that Thunderbolt, and then a quick swap to Vigoroth. Lantern really needs to land a Hydro Pump here, which it looks like it may have just done, just in time too, as Darkest David had that Body Slam ready to go. Oh, and he got it off because he just barely survived. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I wonder if Quartz missed some bubbles there.
He should be able to survive a Hydro Pump from full health.
Oh, it can?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
it's a better story if he missed the bubbles. It's what I choose to believe. Quartz missed some bubbles all day.
But yeah, I think that the Zapdos as well as the Triple Electric forced Quartz maybe out of his regular game plan and made him run some funky stuff.
Darkest David really made that Zapdos look good, which is something that I would have never previously considered.
just after seeing that, I was like, were we wrong? And I went ahead and simmed Zapdos versus Venusaur.
What did I do wrong, guys?
Missed bubbles again.
Did I miss again?
Well,
No,
we
we're
don't
just
know.
gonna assume you did.
Dang, Zapdos is a pain to deal with.
He also got you with that
Quirts.
switch with Fortress,
that switch was
neutralizing
good.
that energy from Venusaur
Yeah,
was
wasted.
also a nail in the coffin.
That's insane.
But yeah, Quartz, game 1, staying in that Fortress versus Zapdos lead and double shielding, I think was your downfall in the first game.
Was I supposed to
I
switch
think
out to Lantern or something?
Or Vigoroth.
Vigoroth, that fighting move wasn't going to do much against it, right?
But Body
It's very
Slam-
glassy.
I see. So you're saying that I should have used the shield on Vigoroth so that I can spam harder.
Yeah, like Vigoroth, I believe, still beats Zapdos.
Interesting.
Even though counter.
Vigoroth, destroys Zapdos. It's a much better matchup than Fort.
But that was pretty cool, though. I mean, seeing as Zapdos performed pretty well there.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna try and see if someone hasn't done a game 3 yet, and hook you guys up to that.
Okay.
I
But
went
yeah,
ahead
see,
and
that's kind of what I figured was that Quartz, which is the advantage of Zapdos, is I think not a lot of people have simmed it, and so not a lot of people probably realized that Vigoroth beats Zapdos in spite of that counter resistance.
absolutely, I did a quick run through the sims of the stuff that we saw, and you would assume out of all of those, potentially the only matchup that's universally positive for Zapdos there is actually versus Fortress, where it overperforms, especially in one shield. So that definitely was a probably just not having played against a Zapdos, you're not entirely sure what to do there.
Yeah. Wait, King is saying Zapdos beats Vigoroth.
I think you read that backwards.
I can confirm that there's no scenario where Zapdos beats Vigoroth.
Wait, he dropped a sim in the chat.
He dropped a
Let's
sim,
see.
and looking at the link, it looks like, yep, Vigoroth wins all shield situations against Zapdos. All even shield situations.
Yeah. I guess he just typed that backwards.
Or did he have it defaults to Thundershock on Zapdos?
That
Slate?
could have been it. Yeah. No, but
I
the
think
sim he sent has Charge Beam Zapdos though. So I'm not totally sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like Zapdos is losing.
Thundershock
losing-
would lose even if you could get it at Great League.
Oh, he said you read it backwards.
happens to the best of us, don't worry.
I do it all the time, man.
D-Master Lance says Zapdos is better now at Drill Peck, but at the beginning he spent a straight week trying to make it work. So yeah, seems like maybe not the best choice, but sometimes there's off-meta picks and throw people off because they're not familiar with the sims and also haven't practiced against it.
Yeah, there's also simming has its own. Like, one thing that I did really like about Zapdos there that I think is kind of neat for an electric is access to Drill Peck does give you game against Venusaur in a number of scenarios that don't sim. There's lots of times where it's like, well, shoot, my electric picked off their second to last mon and their last thing is a Venusaur and I'm just dead in the water. Where having a Zapdos there, in a scenario where maybe you have a little bit of an advantage or they're coming off of that last shield scenario, you might actually be able to peel off a win there, where a lot of the other electrics won't have that option.
Definitely.
Still waiting on the conclusion of round 4. That match that we were going to stream before technical difficulties cropped up. It looks like Fates picked up a win over French Toast, setting up Fates versus either Economical or Silent Rhetoric in an undefeated round 5 match. So hopefully we'll be able to once the results come in there. Really excited to see that. Seen in this tournament besides that Zapdos that you think stands out
from that game?
Just in general. I mean, we're now what, 4 rounds deep in this tournament. I mean, we haven't seen a Wigglytuff, not literally seen a Wigglytuff hit the battlefield.
That is true.
Oh, I mean that could be the players we're following too. I think so far, Bella was the only player we've had on stream with one. If we see Fates, I don't think Fates has one. Fates does have one, so that's a possibility. Eck didn't bring one, but may have. I'm just checking the teams real quick. Rhetoric does not, so there's a chance we'll see a Vig in round 5, but so far we have not seen one yet. Right, so it looks like we have a result too. It looks like Eck did take that, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we should get Eck versus Fates in this next round. They're both our 2 undefeated players in the tournament. The other thing too, Mason, that's unique is that few players to leave off. I guess there's a few players towards the top of the bracket that totally left off Noctowl as one of their choices. Do you think that's just the shape of the meta right now, or
left off who? That one you cut off.
Noctowl.
Who did they leave off?
There's no Noctowl
Noctowl.
on X team. There's a
I think
left knocked off as well.
Noctowl's role is the coverage is similar to Fortress, and I think with Wigglytuff's rise, or they did, people looked for an answer more to Wigglytuff, so I think really gave rise to Fortress. And once people started using Fortress a lot in jungle, I mean, it has similar coverage to Noctowl, as it takes care of all the bugs and the grasses, and also loses to Vigoroth. So I think that once people saw how good Fortress was in and of itself, people started to use that, despite the fact that Fortress does lose to Noctowl.
Yeah, but I think the big selling point on Fortress is that I like the Vigoroth matchup it has a bit better. But
guys.
then the bit hey.
Did I interrupt anything?
I mean a little bit, but
Sorry. Go ahead, finish it. I'll be back in a bit.
Yeah, Quest, trying to stream here.
But Fortress has a much better electric matchup than Noctowl. Especially like with how popular Lantern is, the fact that it wins the zero shield matchup, and even with shields in play, if the Lantern swaps in too late, it can win that as well. Either by if an Earthquake goes unshielded, or you bait, or like double Earthquake. Like there's a lot of scenarios where Fortress can take out an electric, where Noctowl is pretty hopeless. To the point that I've taken up, if someone swaps in a Noctowl and I'm able to counter swap with Lantern, I farm aggressively. But that Lantern versus Fortress matchup, Lantern can farm at all.
It does have some outs that Noctowl just simply doesn't really have.
So I was just about to interrupt to see what you guys want to watch for the next game. Echo only wants to stream one of the last 2 games, so it's between 5 or 6.
I mean,
I think we should take 5, because I think that this is our 2 undefeated players, the last 2 undefeated players in the tournament. It's not the final round for the win, but I think
Sounds good.
This
I
is
guess
a
they want you to do 5 Echo. You good? Cool. There's a chance we have a couple of ties depending on how things go out because of the somehow 33 player format, but it'll be interesting. So I'll set Echo up and I'll let you guys go back to some analysis there.
All right, so let's start looking into these teams a little bit because we know for sure what the matchup is. So we've got Echo running that double electric with no Noctowl, and then he's playing Fitz, who.
He's pretty far down the list with Victory Bell, Vigoroth, Wigglytuff, Fortress, Noctowl, and Lantern.
Yeah. So what do you guys expect to see from each of these players? What kind of mons do you see as kind of important from each? Mason?
I'm still scrolling between the two. I don't have any initial opinions yet.
I'm just taking a look too.
I mean, I know that Echo really likes his Lantern, but F8 TZ is unlikely to know that.
Right. But he
Let's
might
see.
he might run Victory Bell, especially considering there's that double electric look, and Victory Bell kind of smashes both, as well as being a decently hard Vigoroth counter. We've talked about how Venusaur can struggle if it's in late against Vigoroth, but Victory Bell does much better switching because it just chunks with those leaves.
With the late switch, you said?
Yeah.
I'd be more nervous with the late switch on Victory Bell, just because it's significantly glassier than Venusaur. It can't tank the body slams that Venusaur can. Well, I suppose it would only take 2, and Venusaur can only take 2.
Yeah. But the bigger difference is that with the late Venusaur basically has to win that Vigoroth matchup with charge moves, and so with shields in play, and with a late switch, it gets more difficult because Vigoroth can just block and then use more body slams than Venusaur can use 2 points basically. But Victory Bell, while you're right, it doesn't like taking body slams. It has that unshieldable Razor Leaf that will just chunk Vigoroth down regardless. So as long as you're not swapping in crazy late, to the point that Vigoroth already has 2 body slams in the tank. I'm not talking that, but I mean with Venusaur, if you swap in more than a couple counters late, it's gonna be rough. But Victory Ball, you can afford to wait till the 2, 3, maybe 4 counters before you swap, and you can still win. Whereas Venusaur swapping in a little bit delayed gets a lot more. So what answers does Echo have for this Victory Bell? It's basically what Venusaur.
Well, for Victory Bell, I keep looking at it. It's because it gets hardwalled by Venusaur, Vespa Queen, and Fortress, but does well against Lantern, Vigoroth, and Alolan Graveler. So I'm debating on, because it wins Lantern and Graveler by such significant margins, it's going to get shut down with whatever comes in to answer it with either Vespa Queen, Venusaur, or Fortress.
I mean, Venusaur beats it, but it's not a crazy clean win, especially if a Victory Bell is coming off of farming a Lantern or a Graveler for people and
Right.
energy in the bank.
If it lands a Sludge Bomb, that would do a lot of damage.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing that we kind of talked about last night on a stream with Caleb. Is Caleb had battled against someone who was running a Sludge Bomb Acid Spray Victory. And so the first game they used Acid Spray. And so game 2, he opted to not shield something because he's like, oh, it's either a Leaf Blade or an Acid Spray. Like, I don't need to worry about this. And it ended up being Sludge Bomb that KO'd. So it'll be interesting to see what moveset he's running on that Victory Bell.
I would like to see from FATZ. I'd like to see a combination of Victory Bell and Noctowl, as that seems to have the greatest coverage against Echo's team. Because Noctowl can take care of the Fortress, the Venusaur, and the Vespa Queen. All of the things that would give that Victory Bell problems.
Right, so you're thinking maybe a Noctowl, Victory Bell, Vigoroth trio then? From Fitz?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, that seems like a solid trio for sure.
This is starting to feel like a match that's going to come down to which player can get sort of a farmable matchup. We've got a lot of, especially if we see that Victory Bell come in.
Do you guys see any room for Fitz to use that Wigglytuff, or do you think it's not a good choice here?
Oh, you do it on there. All right. Oh, it's on? Oh, hey, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
Hey, this is Seawolf. I just wanted to say hi while I'm here. Not playing well,
Hey.
but I'm having a good time,
bud.
so. Good to,
That's what matters.
that's right. So, just wanted to say hey. That's all. Thanks.
Did you bring any weird picks today?
Oh, yeah. Magneton, Legacy 1, B-Drill. You know I
Double
love
Legacy?
B-Drill. Double Legacy. That's won me a couple games, but just not the matches, so. Oh, well.
Right.
But, yeah, having fun. So, just wanted to say hey. So,
Yeah, thanks for saying hi.
yeah, talk to you guys later.
It's nice to put a face to the name.
Cool. Yeah, one day we'll all meet up, hopefully. But anyway, take care.
Good luck.
Thank you.
That was JRE Seawolf. He's the author of the Nifty or Thrifty articles that you see often in the Silph Arena subreddit.
And
He
the
often
Under the
likes to-
Lights.
As well as on the lights, right? He likes to highlight potentially off-meta Pokemon, or off-meta Pokemon that potentially have a leg to stand on.
Yeah, like I know he looked into early like Tame Growth and what else did he look into? Cradily, and some other funky picks, but I guess this time around none of them ended up looking promising enough, as he didn't run any of those. I know he said he was running like Beedrill and Magneton, but I wouldn't really consider those like fully off meta. And it looks like the next round is up, and we have Economical against Fitz as we predicted. So yeah, so we talked about kind of what we'd like to see from Fitz, and then I was asking, do you guys think there's any room for him to run that Wigglytuff, or do you think that's not a good option here?
Let's see. So Wigglytuff is going to lose against Venusaur. How does it do against Lantern?
It will.
Lantern needs a bulk point, right?
There's a bulk point in the 1 shield. It always wins the 2 shield and always loses
Right.
the 0 shield.
There's not much on this team that resists Charm other than Venusaur and Fortress.
Yeah. Because Vespa Queen doesn't really like that Wigglytuff matchup too much. Neither does Alolan Graveler. So it'll be interesting to see if he actually brings it or if it ends up just being bench pressure.
You know, the little pick of the Kingler Cup. I think that's what we'll dub it.
It has very similar coverage to Victory Bell. The only matchups that are different would be Vespiquen, and then not
Right.
winning a Alolan Graveler is as hard. I assume Wigglytuff wins the Alolan Graveler matchup?
Yeah.
Is that at a shield deficit, or
I'm not sure.
I don't know that
actually.
one off the top of my head.
I'm assuming so, because most of Wigglytuff's wins are at a shield deficit.
I don't like Wigglytuff against Economical's team.
All right, it looks
Is
like
that because you don't like it against his team, or you just don't like it against any team in general?
I mean, granted, I'm not a fan of Wigglytuff itself. It just initially, at least for me, it seems like Wigglytuff is there to break up the Vigoroth Noctowl core.
Right.
There's no
But
Noctowl on
with
Economical's team.
with no Noctowl on Economical's team instead of that Alolan Graveler instead, it becomes less appealing.
Right, that's fair. And it looks like Echo not locked in his team. I believe he led with a Fortress. I think he went Fortress, Lantern, Vigoroth, if I remember correctly.
Let's see how it goes.
So we got Fortress against Vigoroth in the lead. It will be interesting to see if he swaps out of this or not. It looks like he's electing to farm up some Bug Bites. And I'm guessing, uses the Heavy Slam to try to burn a shield. It's probably going to try to tank a Body Slam or two before swapping out to Vigoroth.
I think he just wants to get into his own Vigoroth at sort of a health advantage and a shield advantage.
Yeah, and that's why he
and the opposite switch in there.
waited so that he could tank the Body Slam, and then here's that Victory Bell that we were talking, and how it's a pretty good Vigoroth counter here.
Did he switch in fast enough to not get Body Slammed twice here?
And here comes the second Body Slam. But the third Body Slam is really the question, because one Body Slam isn't going to take out the Victory Bell. He really needs to get to that second Body Slam. But that
also up two shields to none at this point.
Right, and now he has and now his Fortress can farm that Victory Bell. And then once the Victory Bell is out of the way, he knows that his Lantern has a much cleaner sweep here. Interesting, he decides to shield here. But now he's able to just farm away, and now he has a full Heavy Slam ready to go for whatever comes in next, and opts to just fire it off. Probably wishes that he had tried to go for the Earthquake there. I think he could have gotten to it, and then quickly swaps into his Lantern, knowing that it is safe now with Victory Bell out of the way. And he goes for that Thunderbolt, which should be enough given the Fortress already took some damage from that Heavy Slam. And almost takes it out, and is gonna have to shield here in case it's Earthquake.
Did he miss an icon? I believe he missed one icon on the Thunderbolt.
Are you the bubble police here, Mason?
Every bubble matters.
You're right.
Absolutely need a missed bubble emote here, ASAP.
And Vigoroth gets that Bulldoze, and this is going to be real close. It's a race to the charge move at this point. And the Vigoroth does get to the Body Slam before Lantern is able to get to that Thunderbolt. But I forgot there's still a Fortress in the back, but it's just barely able to. Do you guys think he needed to shield there against Victory Bell?
I believe the misplay was sooner than that. I believe he should have shielded against the Victory Bell, but he should have had a little bit more faith in his Fortress, because it had some health left. It wasn't at the point where you needed to fire off a charge move immediately because you're going to die to fast move damage.
Right.
I think he certainly could have gone for the Earthquake against the opposing fortress instead of blindly firing the Heavy Slam.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. But do you think his fortress would have lived if he didn't shield against the Victory Bell, and still been able to get off that Heavy Slam there? Because that could have been another turning point.
Leaf Blade is very cheap and deals a lot of damage.
I actually
cheap in
think
energy
that
cost.
shield was. I think that shield was actually not. Was a bad call.
You don't think it was necessary?
That because I actually estimate the amount of damage that Leaf Blade and Frenzy Plant do to Fortress. It doesn't feel like they should, but they do chunk you, and he did not come out of that fight with much health.
Okay, so you think that was a good play then?
I think the bigger misplay was the firing off of that heavy slam. Knowing that your opponent is shields down to ensure that you have enough health, because like you would have lived. A lot of people in chat are like, well, you would have survived that and won that fight still, yes, but you wouldn't have gotten to that Earthquake. And in this case, firing off that Heavy Slam meant that rather than fire off the much better Earthquake and put yourself at a real advantage.
Exactly.
Sort of having the fort come in at the end against Vig with nothing. And it would have been better to fire off the Earthquake and probably then switch out. I think you would have been in better shape.
Yep, he needed to use that shield to get to Earthquake, Heavy Slam.
All right, and so now we have a game 2 Fortress lead again against a Lantern. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. He's opting to farm up energy right now with the Bug Bite, but looks like he's trying to switch pretty quick. And so he goes for the Earthquake right away, hoping the opponent doesn't shield. And I think if the opponent does shield, he's planning to bail out to Vigoroth right away. So he burns that shield. And is still farming some energy. Burns uses a shield himself, and now I'm expecting that switch. So now we have a Vigoroth in against the Lantern. Not much energy. He charges up and gets counter switched to Fortress, and here opts to use that Body Slam. And he has still quite a bit of energy in the tank, and so it's just going to probably counter and body slam this down. Is forced to burn his own shield most likely on this Heavy Slam and preserve his Vigoroth, and opts to tank it. Again, knowing he can tank that might end up being a turning point to match. He goes for the Bulldoze, which goes unshielded. Nearly takes down the Fortress. Not quite, but now I guess it's even shields now. So now we have Lantern against Vigoroth. And it looks like he is preparing a swap to his own Fortress in order to tank some damage. So there we go. Quick swap to the Fortress. And he's able to get to that Heavy Slam. Oh, he gets beat to the charge move, though. So, difficult decision here. He opts to let it go, is able to tank it, and then fire off the Heavy Slam himself.
Bad news is that last Pokemon is a Victory Bell again.
Victory Bell, right? That's what I keep thinking. I keep waiting for it, but I believe it would have come out sooner against the.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So, and now his Lantern already at a Thunderbolt. I'm expecting that to burn the last shield here, and he has a shield left. So I think he's going to win this one just because he has an energy advantage at this point, and will get to the last Thunderbolt first with no shields left in play. Oh, interesting. I guess he got beat to the Thunderbolt.
That lantern had some extra energy, I think.
Absolutely. There's no way I would have been able to do that. Incredible play by F8.
Yeah, well played. What?
Or Fitz? Is that what we call him? Fitz?
I think it's Fates.
Fates?
I was
maybe?
calling him Fitz on accident, but it's F8 and then TZ. So 8.
Fate. It was fate that he would win this matchup.
Hanging out on this Pokemon trainer pronunciation stream. Celtics have put in like a pronunciation guide for us after each person's name. Like, is your name confusing looking? Pronounce it. Speaking from experience, don't bother pronouncing my name. It's a waste of your time.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the chat here. Someone was saying shielding Fort was a game changer. That was D Master Lance. He said Leaf Blade does 21 damage to Fort. So in that previous match, he thinks that shielding Fort wasn't worth it. Which may be true because if he was able to not shield Fort in the previous game and just take out that Victory Bell, then he would have had a 2 shield advantage. Would have been able to shield that Bulldoze from the Vigoroth.
A couple things I wanted to do. So someone in chat had mentioned that Fates, their rank was due to shoot up. Fates is a relatively new player, it looks like, with only Jungle Cups logged. And they'd already 10x'd. They'd 10x'd 4-2 at that you were at, Mason.
How did he perform?
4-2.
What was his record in that cup?
4-2.
4-2.
That's exactly what I did.
Sorry, what? How did he go in that cup?
I think it was 4-2 maybe, but I'm not too sure.
I think I see the number 4 and the number 2. I don't know which one is wins or losses because they still appear to be backwards as far as I'm concerned on Self.
So he had some wins and some losses, so he did okay. Not much to say there, but it is interesting. I do like seeing new players come onto the scene.
Someone is saying that he's not a new player, but he has a new account apparently.
I mean, I like the scars of my previous embarrassments being there staring at me. It gives me motivation. Embarrass myself further.
Yeah, what do you guys see second game there? Do you think there was like a turning point where Fates like made a good play or Economical made a mistake, or do you think it was just Economical just getting slightly outplayed throughout?
I wonder a little bit about the opener for that fight. We were waiting for Economical to switch out that Fort opener against Lantern, and it felt like there were a bunch of opportunities where there was it felt reasonable, just kind of. And I wonder if a faster switch there might have given more room to navigate to a win.
What do you think, Mason?
I think the key turning point was energy management on Fate's Lantern. Because at the end of the match, we did not. All three of us were very surprised by him getting to that second Thunderbolt.
And that sort of
that match.
To sort of what happened at the beginning of the match too, right? Where that Fort was in
right.
for so long that it became really difficult, especially with Fort and Bug Bite, where it's nearly impossible to count those. It's not even probably worth doing. That is really hard to navigate into, and my guess is that Eck probably thought was at essentially, or played like that Lantern was at 0 energy, because he navigated perfectly to a win at that point. Energy from the Fort battle ended up mattering a lot.
Right. Yeah, and that's something where, especially with something that's hard to count, like Water Gun or Bug Bite, sometimes you can psych your opponent out a little bit by waiting a little extra to fire off charge moves, so that they think that when you're using a charge move that you're at 0 energy, but in fact you have a little already banked up. And looking at the results, it looks like Bella lost here in round 5.
That's unfortunate because given that we have only one player on the undefeated record, the top ranked player with 4 wins was going to get a shot at the end, and with Bella dropping that, it looks like our quote unquote finals is going to end up probably being Bella versus. I'm looking right now.
Well, no, it'll be Fate. Well, Fate's against Bella. Just dropped a second game though, so Bella wouldn't get that. It looks like Jeff Brawny or Sophique potentially.
I think it's going to be Sophique because it'll be based on the pairing will be done by global rank, right? So I think we're going to see.
We might get Sophique against Fates then. But yeah, Jeff Brawny's had a solid tournament so far. It looks like. Oh, actually, but the thing is, Sophique and Fate Sophique, or let's see,
Brink.
There's also it looks like Silent Rhetoric and Darkest Dave don't have their match in yet, and both of them I think are at 3 wins right now.
Silent Rhetoric is at 3 wins, and who was the other one in question?
Darkest David.
Okay, Silent
Darkest
Rhetoric
David also 3 wins.
Yeah,
right. So the winner of that match might end up playing Fates then.
Hi guys.
Hey Kurtz.
So it's like,
Kurtz.
yeah. So it's likely that we're gonna get Jeff Brawny against Fates, who is coming from nowhere, right? The guy's still rival rank, and he's slaying all the big names today.
Well, apparently someone was saying he started a new account or something.
Oh, what?
Yeah, someone said he's not a new player. He has a new account.
Oh, what? I've never heard of that. That's kind of weird.
So I don't really know why, but yeah, it sounds like he might have a lot
made
more.
That up.
I'll try and talk to him and see if that's the case. But yeah, since the other players who have 4 points right now, Echo, Sophic, Brink have all lost to him. Jeff Brawny is the only one. Unless I guess we have Silent Rhetoric and Darkest Dave.
Yeah.
Also one of those as well. Okay, we'll see. But we'll feature Fates games basically.
Can we stream Fates? Does he have iPhone?
He doesn't have an iPhone, so we have to watch from his opponent's perspective, unfortunately.
Okay. And do Jeff Brawny, Silent Rhetoric, and Darkest Dave have iPhone?
Yes, Jeff Brawny is an iPhone, so if he's paired up, he's ready to go. I haven't spoken to the other 2 yet, so we'll see.
Okay.
But I'm gonna go talk to Fates right now to see what's the situation with that. That's kind of weird.
How's your food? How's your food, Quirts?
I'm sorry, my food's good. I'm starving. Alright, I'm gonna mute myself now. Have fun.
Oh, or the other one that we might be seeing is Brink has 4 wins.
They've already played. It sounds like
they have.
Let me look.
Oh yeah, they played round 1. You're right.
So run their way through. It looks like most of the
4-win players.
They're
what a showing.
18 is pretty remarkable for somebody that high. But I guess starting down so low in the pairing algorithm probably helps a lot.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It seems like they just happened because they were so low. I think they were always getting paired up with one of the top players in the same number of wins. I think that's why they have such a high Buchel score. Because if you look at Buchel's right now, Fates and Economical both have 18, and then most other people are 14 and below. So Fates has definitely proved their worth. They've played quite a few quality opponents and they've won.
That'd be interesting to see. I would love to. Love to. Obviously, we're. It sounds like most of what we know is conjecture. The person who had mentioned, like, oh, it's a new account for this person, also told us that they made that up. So.
And I'm here. No, and I'm here to clarify for the record. Everyone here knows him and have seen him in previous tournaments. He just started playing very recently. The guy is using his main account, so
Okay.
to clear the record, Fates is he's clean.
Well, it's cool to see new people joining and doing well too. I know Ken, you weren't actually there, but in that big Cascadia Cup in Portland, we had a relatively new player sweep the whole thing, and I think they shot up like 11,000 ranks because it was
The
their
last
10-time
round.
cup.
The last round is live, and Fates will be playing Javroni in the finals.
There we go.
Well, there we go.
And
We've got a player locally too.
I think
I
they
don't know if you've
shot
met
up like
met
11,000
TJ, but he
ranks
started playing maybe
because
3
it was
cups
the
ago
last round.
and went. He's in a
The
local
last round
remote
is-
league we put together, and for Nightmare he went 0-5. Jungle Cup he just went 5-0, beating
wow.
4 challengers along the way. So with a little thought and practice, I mean,
Yeah.
to get into it if you're enjoying it.
But yeah, this should be a good match. I'm looking at the results. So Jeff Brony is one of the two people that beat Bella here. And he also beat, where did it go? He beat 3 leaders, I think. And then he lost to Economical. I think that was one of the ones we watched. But
We
yeah.
watched the round 3 versus Economical.
Right. All right, and so let's see. Jeff Brony's running a fairly meta team with Venusaur, Lantern, Noctowl, Fortress, Vespiquen, and Vigoroth. And then Fates has that Wigglytuff, Victory Bell, Vigoroth, Fortress, Noctowl, Lantern. So fairly similar teams, actually. It looks like just Wigglytuff and Victory Bell on Fates' side compared to the Vespiquen and Venusaur from Jeff Brony.
This is our last chance today to see a Wigglytuff. Actually, will it happen?
And Wigglytuff is not too bad here, beating the Vespiquen and Noctowl, and then having the fairly even Lantern matchup that comes down to IVs in the 1 shield, and it wins the 2 shield. And then a similar thing with that Vigoroth matchup, where it has an IV dependent win and the always wins the 2.
Well, and both of its negative matchups, in theory, could be covered up by Fortress getting covers them both entirely. Where Fortress mirror scenario, but it gives you some additional coverage elsewhere.
Right.
That is a very valid point.
Yeah, so Wigglytuff could be decent here, but again, the biggest problem with Wigglytuff is that usually its wins entail you ending up with a shield deficit.
I mean, I think it's possible. To be real, I just want to see a Wigglytuff in play once. I don't care what it does. I just want to see one today. We saw a Zapdos today. Can we see a Wigglytuff?
Someone is saying, Smug on Devo is saying Wigglytuff Fortress Noctowl. No, Vigoroth Wigglytuff Fortress is a terrifying line.
I mean, that sounds like a reasonable line.
How would Jeff Brony deal with that? Well, Fortress would be a decent pick against those. And Vigoroth is also fairly decent too.
Fates' team doesn't necessarily want you to. It doesn't feel like you want to bring your fortress that badly. See how that plays out.
It's weird because it's like you don't necessarily want to bring it, but you also necessarily wouldn't be scared of using it either. So it'll be interesting. All right, so here we go. We got Vigoroth and this Fortress. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. If the Fortress opts to swap out, or if it's just going to stay in. Here the Fortress uses that Heavy Slam in order to shield. And then the Vigoroth is still just farming energy. And opts to go for the Bulldoze.
I kind of like this. Fortress very rarely shields that first move.
Exactly. And he gets that Bulldoze through. And so now he's able to maybe just... and he opts to use the Body Slam so that he either burns a shield or can get that KO before a second Heavy Slam comes out. So here... the Fortress barely hangs on in order to get that Heavy Slam off, which the Vigoroth decides to shield so that he can counter it down and come into the next fight with nearly a Body Slam ready to go. And so he's able to get off that Body Slam. What were you going to say?
Also going to provide him with switch advantage here, which I think is sometimes underrated in these fights.
All right, so now... I assume that the Fortress is going to be coming in, which it does, since Fortress can tank those Body Slams pretty well, and also threaten Vigoroth a little better with that those Heavy Slams. And
I think
Vigoroth opts to use a Body Slam. Oh, and a quick switch out to Lantern.
Wow!
So
what a play!
So we go from you saying it was a misplay to him probably having the play that wins the game. Because now shields down, Fortress has to get to that Earthquake to do anything. Oh, but we have a quick swap to Noctowl. It looks like he's hoping to just take down, basically to burn out Lantern's energy in order to have a chance here. But at this point, Lantern... should be looking to try to farm some energy here, because if Lantern is able to successfully farm this Noctowl, it'll be a GG at that point. The Psychic does get Lantern pretty low though, and so Lantern is forced to use a Thunderbolt here and in order to ensure the victory. He didn't want to risk the Noctowl getting to another Sky Attack there. And so the Fortress now comes in with energy, uses the Heavy Slam to basically take out the Lantern, but now it's going to be faced with that Vigoroth in the back, which has a Body Slam ready to go, so that's going to be GG.
Neutralizing that energy there with the Lantern switch into the Heavy Slam was what I believe to be like the game-defining moment.
Oh yeah, that was easily flipped the tide of the game.
And that was extremely bold as well, because if that hadn't been timed perfectly, Fortress going to get to a Bulldoze there, or to an Earthquake there.
Exactly.
Really daring.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to make those risky plays. Risk it for the biscuit, right? You gotta sometimes take some risks in order to win at the highest level.
The funny thing is, I don't actually know, given the rest of that scenario, that was necessary. Given that with a Lantern versus a mostly dead Fortress and a Noctowl, but it absolutely worked. That was perfectly timed. There's definitely I think
right, but I don't know if he knew that there was a Noctowl in the back, though. Did he?
But that was an unknown.
Right.
So in retrospect, maybe it didn't matter, but in the moment, you don't know what they have back.
It was risky, and it could have burned him, because if he didn't switch in right on the turn that Heavy Slam was firing, then Fortress could have easily charged to an Earthquake, and that would have cost him the game,
Yeah.
most likely.
Definitely.
So-
I agree there.
It was remarkable, but also was
It was not that risk.
right.
If he hadn't done it so well, we'd be talking on the flip side about how that was the turning point in the game going the other way. Here's another one. I think this is what the third non-Vigoroth we've seen, not counting the team that didn't even have Vigoroth.
There
But
were a number of games, I think, where Vigoroth was not featured. I'm still just tough. Come on. I believe. Believe.
And so here it looks like Jeff Brownie's just studying the teams of 6 a little longer before he locks in his trio.
The team is named No Grass. So he's banking that Fates will not run the Victory Bell.
And we have a Vigoroth against Fortress here in the lead. It'll be interesting to see how this one plays out, given that last time in Vigoroth against Fortress, we had the Body Slam go through unshielded first. So maybe this time he draws an early shield with that Body Slam. But he does not. And so here he's probably going to be forced to shield to tank that Heavy Slam. And
I don't think from Fates' side he looked at that unshielded bulldoze as too big of a loss, seeing as he essentially came out of that fight up a shield.
Right. And so now we have a Fortress switch with a Vigoroth counter switch. So the same match we just had, but in reverse. And the Heavy Slam burns a shield from Vigoroth here. So now we're looking at kind of a similar situation. And Vigoroth is firing off a charge move. He opts to shield in order to make sure that his Fortress will hopefully survive in order to get off that Body Slam, or I mean Heavy Slam rather. Tanks a Body Slam and uses that Body Slam here, which should either KO or force that last shield in the game. And the Vigoroth opts to shield, which I think is a good play, allowing it to just farm up the Fortress for energy. But Javroni had energy in the bank on his Vigoroth, which I believe will barely doesn't KO.
Wow.
And so now is forced to take a Body Slam himself. If he had been able to KO there, I think that would have been a pretty pivotal point, given that Fates was electing to try to farm energy there. The Vigoroth is going to get KO'd by this Heavy Slam. He tried to go for the counter KO in order to farm energy, which I think is a fine play, because now even though the Lantern is able to farm some energy, and as a result of farming that energy, I think he is going to win
should have
this
made
fight.
an insta swap.
Yeah,
there at
you're
the
right.
end.
So yeah, I think this is gonna end up as a win for Jeff Brownie, and ends up being actually kind of fortunate for him that the Fortress was able to get that KO before his Vigoroth did, because as a result he was able to farm up that energy and come out ahead, winning the game.
So as it hits all the bubbles, there you go. He did not pull a quartz, and we're on to round 3.
One more chance.
I would really
Come on.
like to. I'd really like to see that victory bell. I really would.
Yeah, I think given that we've seen a lot of
Vigoroth Lantern Victory Bell does really well against, but I think Fates might
Struggles
just be
against the other
worried.
4.
Yeah, the other 4 all tend to beat it, so I think he might be a little
Right.
a little scared, but maybe he'll make an adjustment because he's noticed a lot of Lantern Vigoroth here, and ultimately, even though your opponent might have 4 things that beat him on, if your Mon is able to pick up 2 out of 3 positive matchups, pretty nice.
we've seen fairly similar teams from both players in games 1 and 2. I wonder if one of them takes a risk here in game 3 and tries to change it up.
Yeah, what kind of changes do you think either of them might make if they were doing something different?
So Jabroni is running that no grass lineup because he knows that he has 4 hard counters to Victory Bell. But if Fates is able to read that and he ends up bringing the Victory Bell, it could certainly cause a lot of problems for Jabroni.
If he leads it in against this specific squad, that's gonna create a lot of issues.
Exactly.
Definitely. That being said, I think Jabroni would still have out here. The Vigoroth would likely be able to burn a shield from Victory Bell, and then could bring in the Fortress to finish it off. So while a Victory Bell lead would be troublesome, I don't think it's
a
death
true.
sentence. It's not a death sentence. There's still ways to
as long as he doesn't swap Fortress into the Victory Bell.
Right. And that's something where you just have to kind of know your team and how to use it. Where sometimes swapping out of a bad matchup is good, but sometimes you're better off staying in the bad lead, losing, and then being able to bring in something without getting switch locked.
Mm-hmm. With 2 out of the 3 Pokemon in your lineup being weak to something, and then you leading into that thing that you're weak to, you definitely don't want to swap the hard counter in, because then you lose your only chances of beating that Pokemon.
Right, but if he ends up leading Lantern instead, and he leads that into a Victory Bell, that might force a swap, because Lantern just gets decimated, whereas Vigoroth is at least usually able to force a shield. So that would maybe be a death sentence if he leads Lantern into Victory Bell. But if he leads a Vigoroth into Victory Bell with that lineup, I think he still has options.
Looks like he's looking at this. He's looking at a couple different squads here. Let's see what
he keeps on coming back to no grass.
Yeah, we're gonna have a fort lead.
Now he's leading Fortress here. So that could be a little risky though, because if Fortress gets taken out, if the Fortress gets taken out in the lead, and there's a Victory Bell in the back, that could be GG. So here we have yet another Fortress versus Vigoroth lead scenario. I think that's the most of those lead scenarios that I've really ever seen, and it's just been back to back to back. I assume he's going to elect to not shield here and tank that body slam, and then get to that heavy slam in order to force a shield. At this point, it'll be interesting to see whether he opts to stay in this matchup or swap out to his own Vigoroth. And it seems like he's staying in, trying to whittle down with a body slam. And then we have a swap to Fortress, counter swap to Vigoroth. So I think this is the reverse of the previous game, where we literally just had the same thing but flipped.
You weren't sick of these 2 Pokemon yet.
This is a great testament to the health of jungle with Vigoroth and Fortress everywhere. So
we have just spam the body slam, and then fire off another one. which at this point is going to KO or force shield. Or I guess nearly KO, and able to finish off with counters, meaning he has almost a full body slam ready to go for likely the Vigoroth coming back in, but it could be something. Oh, and there's that Victory Bell. He's able to
So
get
now
off
he
the
still
body
has that.
slam though. Yeah, he still has that fortress left. But the fortress is pretty low on health.
So the way that he set up his lineup, it looks like since he led with fortress and then switched it out, he almost in a way ran a sack swap with Vigoroth in hopes of baiting out that Victory Bell.
Right.
And it looks like he missed some bubbles here, which might.
Oh man.
If he has Lantern in the back, correct?
Yeah.
Oh no.
But he has to shield that, yeah. And then he should be able to take it out with just Water Gun, but he's gonna lose a lot of health. And then we have that Vigoroth that's almost dead, but with energy here. So this is gonna go down to the.
We got the
lands
bulldoze.
that bulldoze, but Lantern is almost to that
Can
Thunderbolt.
Lantern get there?
Oh man.
Wow.
That,
That's incredible.
yeah, so talk about a close finish if I've ever seen one.
Fate's the underdog sweeping.
That was real well played by Fates. Do you think
he's responsible for putting every single player that he took out all 5 of like the players like just behind him.
Yeah.
Like for this tournament, like the top 5 players.
Yeah, it's not like, he had an easy couple first rounds and only had to beat 1 or 2 top players. Like most of the people sitting on 3 and 4 wins, he gave them a lot.
Hi guys.
Hi, Kurtz.
Would you guys like to talk to Fates?
I'd love to talk to Fates.
Yeah.
How does he pronounce? I'd love to find out how he pronounces his name first.
He'll read it for you, but I think it's like F and 8. You combine it. So I'll be battling my game in the background while you guys talk to him, alright? Because I haven't done my game 3 yet.
Oh, can we shoutcast your game first and talk to him after?
You could, but my game is not gonna be as entertaining. But sure. Alright, I'm gonna do my thing now.
So Mason, you pointed out that he missed a couple bubbles, but do you think that would have actually made the difference there?
I'm trying to think if it would have come down to if Vigoroth would have been able to still get to a bulldoze and a body slam, because if Vigoroth would have had, I don't think it would have changed the fact that Vigoroth had enough energy to get to bulldoze and body slam, because that finished off Lantern.
Right, and
So
actually, I think he was closer the way it played out, because Lantern farmed a little more energy and almost Thunderbolt. If the Victory Bell had less health, the Lantern would have had less energy and would have been a little away. Someone was saying when the tournament's win comes down only to CMP. Was that CMP? Because I thought that the Lantern.
It looked like he had the Thunderbolt. They were both hitting the button. I thought that was game on Jabroni's side, but it turned out that his opponent had the body slam. Oh, a Heracross team.
Rip my dreams
I
of
love Heracross for this cup.
Yeah, no Wigglytuff.
Wigglytuffs.
I'm curious if Bella actually used that Wigglytuff at all.
I know that he used it against me in scrims a little bit. It definitely hit the against me.
Wait, so did Quartz say, is this game 1 or game 3 or?
I think he said it's game 1.
Okay, so we have a whole set of 3 here. Quartz trying to cheat and bring that Melmetal.
It does look on Quartz's end like the good old Noctowl Vigoroth core is a good place to start. He looks like he's picking Vespiquen to be the third. Is there
Yeah, I was
any other thoughts?
I was gonna say Vespiquen looks pretty solid here because it can usually beat Fortress unless Fortress is running Rock Tomb. I believe it tends to beat Heracross. It beats Vigoroth. It beats Venusaur. And although it loses to Lantern, like in the one shield matchup, it gets Lantern real low. This is real positive for Quartz, leading Vigoroth into Lantern, because Lantern does beat both of the other 2 mons he has in the back. So if he's able to take out the Lantern here in the lead, that gives a lot more for his Vespiquen and Noctowl to do work later in the game. Because that's what I was going to mention with the team comps, is that he is a bit soft to Lantern. So being able to try to take that out in the lead is a good play. What was that?
I think he's overcharging here. It looks like he might have exceeded 100 energy. So basically the damage from or the energy production from his counters is going nowhere.
Right. And now he opts to use a Bulldoze, but gets counter swapped by the Venusaur here. And he brings in Vespiquen to farm up. I'm not sure if using the X-Scissor was the right play here, because the Venusaur was so low. But I guess he's trying to KO and not take a Sludge Bomb. But it looks like the Venusaur had enough energy for the Sludge Bomb. But Quartz is at least able to burn a shield here and should be able to KO with Bug Bites at this point. And
I wonder how he'll deal with the Lantern.
Well, he's got a... He's
got the
almost
bigger
got an X-Scissor, and he's also got almost got an X-Scissor ready to... I think that was a misplay trying to wait. I think he should have spammed out that X-Scissor ASAP. And now he's forced to burn a shield here. What is he doing?
Getting greedy with the farms a little bit.
Yeah. I would have... I think it might have been better to just fire off the X-Scissor and then save the shield and let his Vespiquen go. But he opts to burn the shield and get the double X-Scissor, which should KO this Lantern now. And so now we have Vespiquen against Vigoroth in the back, and he is able to barely get to that X-Scissor before going down. And then he opts to try to swap quickly into his own Vigoroth. And he eats a Body Slam here. But he's looking like in a pretty good spot because he has a full health Noctowl in the back, and shields are down, so all he needs to do at this point is land a Sky Attack to win. That Vigoroth should not be able to get off enough Body Slams to KO before he gets to that wing attack. So solid swap to the Vigoroth there. In order to burn some energy. Vigoroth uses another Body Slam, gets the Noctowl to the red, but it's tanky enough to survive and get off that Sky Attack. Looks like he missed a couple bubbles.
Quartz still struggles with this bubble game. Bubble police here.
Yeah, guys, I think we really need a missed bubble emote. I was thinking maybe like a Magikarp for that could be good.
Quartz's face.
just Quartz. Just picture Quartz. Just out of reach.
Oh, so I guess that was game 3.
Cool.
And so Quartz takes a winning game 3 to take the match. And yeah, let's see if all the games are done at this point. It
We should
looks
get
like
an interview with Fates now.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, that's interesting though. So Fates had 6 wins, and there was only one player, Darkest David, with 5, and then a load of people on 4 wins.
All those people.
Hi guys, so they're going to be giving out the trophy in a little bit, so I'll just leave my mic unmuted. It might be a little bit loud, but at least you guys can see a little bit of the atmosphere and everything going on. Super good games by Fates, by the way. Awesome stuff.
Hey, Quartz.
Alright.
Quartz,
Yes.
you missed some bubbles.
I did miss a bubble. And then we'll have Fates come over to talk to you guys in a little bit. But thanks for tuning in, everyone. It's been an awesome stream. Really happy we did this.
You can see Fates being awarded the trophy there.
Yep.
With his backwards hats make you play better, in case you didn't know that. We learned that from Ash in the main series.
Doing some maneuvers so that he casts. There we go. Alright, here you go. You can hear them there, you can see chat talking here. And yeah. And the mic will be right here.
Hi, Fates, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
There we go. Perfect.
How do you feel?
It feels good. I don't know if I was expecting this coming in, but got it done.
So you're pretty new to PvP then, huh?
Yep, I started at the beginning of the month for Jungle Cup. It was first time experiencing it.
Wow, you really trained up well to, win a cup within like a month of starting PvP.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
I tried to grind as many of these tournaments as I could.
So we're wondering, did you use your Wigglytuff at all in this tournament?
I actually did not a single time. It's kind of there for the bait.
I'm highly disappointed. That poor Wigglytuff deserves better.
So, Fates, what got you into PvP? Why did you decide to join so late, or right before the second season, I should say?
So I actually stopped playing Pokemon Go typically during the winters, and so I kind of missed the whole PvP update. And when I started playing in the summer, I rediscovered it, and I'm just a competitive person naturally, so it just was for me.
Well, that's great. It's fun to see new people joining every day, and it's super cool to see, someone who joined so recently have a lot of success. So, walk us, or go ahead, Mason.
I was about to say, he took out some very, very high-ranked players today, and really showed us a lot of skill. And how much did you end up practicing for this tournament, Fates?
It's basically just the tournaments I did before this. I don't really have anybody to practice with in my free time, so that's where I got all my experience from.
You displayed some incredible skill watching you today.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Well, if you're looking,
no, that was you, Tristan. Go for it.
Oh, I was gonna say, if you're looking for people to practice with, I'm just gonna plug our Ghost Stadium server. Is a great place to find top quality practice partners. Okay. It's an international server, and you can just work up to ultra friends with people, and then get scrimmages all the time.
Yeah, cool.
And so we definitely love to have a player of caliber join our server.
Yeah, definitely look into it.
So walk us through your team real briefly. How you selected the mons you
So I think you gotta have the Vigoroth. There's no other option for that. So the Fortress, I think, just got a lot better with the Wigglytuff in the meta. And it's just a tank in general, so I wanted that on my team. Knockdown, I just wanted coverage for the bug types. I think the Victory Bell, I'm only running that because I don't have a Venusaur with Frenzy Plant. But to me, it's the fast moves from it. It just decks things.
Definitely.
The Wigglytuff, I tried it last weekend and it just underperformed for me in general because everyone was just ready for it. So I just kind of wanted to keep it as the bait and then plan my lineups around what I thought they were going to do based off the Wigglytuff. And then Lantern's just overall just a tank.
Yeah. So what teams of 3 did you find yourself using the most?
A lot of times it was just the Fortress, Vigoroth, and the Lantern, with either a Vigoroth lead or a Fortress lead.
Mason, Ken, you guys have any more questions for Fate? Oh, how do you pronounce your username?
It's Fates. You say the 8 just like an 8. So Fates.
Okay.
I'm still just too mad about the Wigglytuff not getting any love. So
I'm sorry about that.
no, I don't know if we can be friends, Fates, because I do a lot of the same conclusions many of us.
Fates.
So.
Ken wasn't daring enough to bring Wigglytuff himself in his tournaments, so he was trying to live vicariously through you. So that's why he's giving you some trash talk here.
Sorry, I disappointed.
It's okay. You'll be forgiven.
Thank you.
Do our viewers have any questions for Fates?
Hey guys, it's AJ. I had a quick question just to elaborate. How long did he say he practiced before the tournament?
Just the tournaments I did on the weekend.
Okay, that makes more
Really
sense.
nothing in my free time. Yeah.
I heard 10 minutes before the tournament. I was like, no way.
Let's see if I can find
There's some plays today that usually take a lot of practice to pull off. So I'd be very interested to see how you do if you dedicate a lot of time to practicing.
125 Great League battles. So
That really puts us to shame. Mason, what are you at? 15,000 at this point?
Oh, wow.
I'm almost at 2,200.
So what Mirror Cups are you looking forward to?
I guess the first one is I'm going to be out in Pittsburgh for that Boulder Cup. So I guess that's what I got to get ready for now.
You mean the one on the 4th?
Yep.
Or a different one?
Yep.
Oh, that's Twilight and Regionals, I believe.
Oh, is it? Oh.
Yeah.
It's Twilight and Regionals, but you can practice Boulder if you want to.
Okay.
We'll just be ready for Twilight and Regionals.
Yeah. Yeah, make sure you practice for the right cups there. But that'll be a good one. Mason ValorAsh, who you're talking to right now, he'll be there. And so some other real top players. So it'll be fun to see you butt heads against them.
Okay, cool. I can't wait.
All right, Ken.
What's up?
Do we want to get Fates? Will you grab Quartz on the stream? Oh, also show us that trophy. Show us that trophy again.
Yeah, show us that sweet trophy.
What's on it? I can't quite see it.
Why is there a Kingler on the trophy?
It's a Maryland crab.
Yeah.
Oh,
did you know
clever.
Oh. We're like,
jungle,
it's not
didn't you know?
eligible for jungle.
They're kings of the jungle, I think.
Well, congratulations and thanks for talking to us.
All right, thank you guys very much.
Hey man, congrats again. Super awesome to see you crush it on stream here. And hopefully we'll see you around more, yeah?
Yeah.
Careful with the cables over there, but... Alright guys. Time to call it a wrap.
Yeah. I think we're ready to wrap things up.
Yeah, let me pull my phone real quick. I guess I can switch over to our Patreon page as we close out. And do you guys have anything else to say, or am I good to go?
You're good to go.
That's good.
Yeah, thanks all the viewers for watching, our Patreon supporters. Super appreciate your support as always. It's thanks to your support that we are, I have the ability to buy the equipment to come to this event as well. So, super glad that we get to do this. Hopefully we're going to do another one soon. I won't be able to do the Pittsburgh one, but Ultimate Showdown in Philly next month.
And Ultimate Showdown in Seattle.
And the Seattle one. If you guys don't know about it, make sure to go check out our Twitter and sign up. We'll be pulling up the top players from both East and West Coast and bring, 16, 8 from each coast for a showdown for all the Mirror Cup tournaments in one go. And,
well, not even for each coast, just the top 8 players that are willing to travel to each.
Right.
Whoever can make it. So,
Perfect.
if you're in the middle of the country or something, if you're willing to make that trip, and you're one of the top 8 players that said they can make it to that location, we'll pick you. We're really looking for the top players that are able to make it to each of those locations.
Perfect. Anyway, I managed to find someone we can raid. King of Charmanders is doing some shiny hunt, and I'm very sure that they are not a spoofer this time.
You sure?
Yes, I'm very sure.
Oh man,
we
that's
do
a
not.
bummer. I really wanted to tune into a spoofer.
We do not want to tune into spoofers. We do not support spoofers. Anyway, I'm gonna send the raid over to them and see you for more streams this week. Article streams, meta discussion streams, and more battles. So, thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
Thanks, Squirts.